of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defence of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, there you go. It's Friday morning. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. It is, of course, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Brits. Morning, we made it to Friday. So much to tell you, so much to get involved. And the viral legend that is Charlie Rowley on the way. The man who simply sits in that seat and you go bonkers for him. As ever, this is the radio station and the show that wants to hear your views on the news of the day. Let's see who gets in the first voice note this morning to Christian. 0344 499 1000. Get them in right now. What do you make of what's happening in the world? And 8722. Start your message with the word talk. Well, alarm clock Brits, what are you waking up to? As the Daily Mail says today. Desperate and deluded. Let's put it like this. We can't put a warship to sea. HMS Dragging Your Feet, still stuck in Portsmouth, and HMS Duncant, that hasn't even left. Trump's frozen the PM out. Britain is a laughing stock, but despite being labelled as desperate and deluded, Starmer, our leader, insists that he would rather negotiate with the brutal, tyrannical, heinously vile Iranian regime because that's the right thing to do under international law. This is your Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday morning.
Can end this now. They should refrain from further strikes, give up their weapons programs, and cease the appalling violence and repression against the Iranian people. This is the route to de-escalation and back to the negotiating table.
Sorry, is he talking about Iran or the Americans? Because I'm a little bit confused. Whatever your thoughts, and I'll nail it again for Friday. I know it's the same story, but it's the only story in town. Whether or not you believe or think that actually we should have been with the Americans from the beginning, or we should have allowed our bases to be used. The fact of the matter is they are our staunchest ally, and I think what will come to pass in the next few weeks and months, forgetting even Donald Trump, is the realisation in America that when they needed us, we were not there. And not even them, the allies in the Middle East saying things like, hold on a minute, Bahrain, the UAE, Dubai, where are you? I cannot, honestly, I need this weekend to go to rehab. I cannot still live with the fact that we can't get a poxy ship to get to bleeding Cyprus, but the French, the Greeks, the whole world has arrived. We're not there. It was interesting yesterday, Defence Secretary John Healey, he went to Cyprus, and he was sort of caught on the hop over the fact that HMS Dragon is still in Portsmouth. But what was really interesting is, because we had a Labour MP on yesterday who was so inspiring I've forgotten his name. Anyway, he said everything's fine in Cyprus, which was really interesting because the Defence Secretary basically had to take cover yesterday outside RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus as yet more ballistic missiles headed towards Cyprus. We've got a clip, have a watch.
Just to be clear, you had the option of deploying HMS Dragon for many weeks, and it was your decision when to deploy it or not, as it were.
So the decisions we've taken are part of the coordinated defence we do with other allies. We have other destroyers in this region.
Basic question, why send it? If there's already the capability in the region, why send it?
Because we're now in a position to judge better the nature of the Iranian response to the strikes. We can see they're increasingly indiscriminate.
It was clear the Iranians always said that they would do it widespread. They would target US military assets around the region and anybody else. So did it come as a surprise to you that Akrotiri was targeted?
So weeks before the conflict started, I'd moved extra jets, air defence systems, radars, drone teams into Cyprus. That was part of defending our British people here.
But none of them can defend against ballistic missiles.
And defending the island. We always will defend, we will fight in coordination with allies. And we had US destroyers also in the area. So,
But they can't defend against ballistic missiles. The Type 45 destroyer can, and it's not here yet. You know, the French have got a frigate here, I think, as of last night.
Sure.
I mean, the point, I know they're closer, but they got it to sea immediately.
John Healey, no, I just thought to point out that the Labour Party machine thinks that was wind, that was missiles. A very good morning to the legend virally, Charlie Rowley.
Good morning, hello.
Does he look like he knows what he's talking about, John Healey? He keeps saying in conjunction with allies, and yet most of the Middle East and America are saying we're nowhere to be seen, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't justify saying, oh, we moved certain aircraft here, we moved radars here, we moved drones here.
Why don't you move a ship there?
Move a ship, which is still docked in Portsmouth.
HMS dragging your feet.
Exactly, it hasn't even got going. And so, I mean, there will be serious questions about this because, you know, the US asked the UK, could it use our air defences, our air bases to land their planes? We said no. The Prime Minister yesterday confirmed that he'd had that conversation with the President, I think, and it was reported in some of the papers that this took place about a week before the strikes. We knew this was coming.
Absolutely.
And yet did nothing about it.
Unbelievable. Let's go to the front page of the Mail. Desperate and deluded. We can't put a warship to sea. Trump's frozen him out. Our nation's a laughing stock, but the PM insists I'm in control. I want to make this point again and again, Charlie. We made it on Tuesday. There are people who will think that we shouldn't have been involved, but our performance to that point, or after that point, in terms of supporting British nationals in Cyprus is beyond embarrassing. By the way, just to give you a heads up, a great lineup today. Former Defence Secretary Ben Wallace on this show, former Commander-in-Chief of the UK Land Forces, General Sir Nick Parker, Sir Simon Mayle, British Army General, all of that as we update you. Isabel Oakeshott live in Dubai. Can I just bring you to Trump on Starmer this week? And I know a lot of people, I had a Labour MP on, brave enough to come on yesterday, who said, there's no bombs in Cyprus. The cost of living's fine. Food prices are going down. We didn't lie to the waspy women, and really we need to all calm down. Starmer's doing a great and calm job. Monday, Trump said he was disappointed on Starmer. Tuesday, he said the special relationship's not what it used to be. Wednesday, he said he's no Churchill. Thursday, he said he's a loser. And now he says the PM should be behind his war effort without question. Where do you stand on this?
Well, for Keir Starmer, apart from all of that, it's going incredibly well. You know, I mean, look, you're absolutely right to your first point. It's the easy decision, actually. The easy bit is to decide whether or not you're going to get involved. That's fine, okay? And you can understand, even though I don't agree, actually. I think we should have been shoulder to shoulder with the US.
But I understand the people who say that we shouldn't.
Exactly. So that's the easy bit. But the hard bit, and the bit that has clearly been found wanting, all the while the Prime Minister's been going around on TikTok telling us, we didn't get involved. We didn't get involved. Proud to say.
Proud to say, yeah.
Exactly. That's the easy bit. The hard bit is then to think, right, we're not getting involved in this bit, but we know this is coming. So what are we now going to do?
Proactive politics.
Exactly. And all of that has clearly not been there.
He admitted it, Healey, that they knew weeks ago and they moved jets, that the Gulf was full of American ships and others, but not ours. Whether or not you are one of those people who thinks you should have been there, Charlie and I do, or we should have it's the response. It's the embarrassment on the international stage.
And just on that, there's a final bit because of the clip that you've just played. What is the response now? Apart from, not getting involved, okay, now you turning on that effectively, fine. But
Let's have a chat.
But not having the resources in place to be prepared for that strike or the aftermath of what, or the repercussions of what the US might do. He's now saying, as you just played in that clip, give up to Iran, give up your weapons, stop the oppressions, end your nuclear program, come back to the table. Who on earth do you think you're dealing with?
Mate, I'm so with you.
This is the Iranian regime that has flouted international law in any given time, something that you still want to play that game because, okay, fine, you're a lawyer, not a leader. We all know that. But the idea that these people can get back to the table, get back to the negotiating table, that's the UK strategy, is it? When people in Cyprus are having bombs thrown over their head.
Completely. And I reason you and I get more and more angry is this complete rubbish about let's hide behind the idea that international law. I'm going to say it again for the 5th consecutive day. Whether or not you agree with joining the strikes, I'd love to take him and his left-wing international law-based idiots and put them in front of the parents whose kids were murdered in the Manchester Arena bombings and say to them, you're all right, you just have a chat. It's like that idiot Polanski who, by the way, yesterday said he didn't disagree with defacing Churchill's statue. He says, let's just get on if I'm the Prime Minister, I'll get on a plane and I'll go to Vladimir Putin. He'll be a reasonable guy and he'll put down his... Who do these people think the Ayatollah Khomeini is, these mad mullahs who have sponsored terrorism for so long? It's like they don't get it, Charlie, but I think it's even more dangerous. I don't think they want to get it.
No. Well, they cannot see, I think, the wood through the trees. They couldn't see, what's in front of them. You're absolutely right. Churchill, an actual war hero, someone that has defended this country to enable people like Zach Polanski, however much we disagree with him, to be able to have a platform,
absolutely,
to be able to air his views. But this is the other point, the idea that, as you said, the people on the left, like Zach Polanski, lots of Greens, lots of left-wing, lovies, saying how terrible this was because they've got Trump derangement syndrome. Trump doesn't always get it right. Let's, be
you and I have said that repeatedly.
But and people will disagree with this decision, and that's fine. But you can't let him rent free in your head to a point where you are on the left, someone that's advocated diversity, equality, tolerance for women, tolerance for the LGBT community, equality in all other areas. And then say, how terrible this is. You are effectively defending the Ayatollah, the cancer in this world of sponsoring international terrorism, the very people that don't believe in rights for women, that don't believe in equality, that don't stand for everything you and I all enjoy here. How can anybody possibly defend that?
Mate, I couldn't agree more. 0344 499 1000. It's the only number in town. Get your voice note in nice and early to Christian. 0344 499 1000 87222. Brian in Cardiff. I mean, this to me is absolutely nailed on. Do you not think it's slightly sadly ironic that he can't stop the boats coming across any bleeding channel, but he can stop the only boat we've got getting to Cyprus? It's absolutely true. Morning to Bill in Rumsey. Morning, Billy boy. Morning, JK and Charlie. What a duo. Do you think we've got a future?
Oh, well, I hope so.
As the Gulf... Can you imagine summer seasons in Bridlington? As the Gulf War keeps going and the price of oil and gas rocks up, that's the reality. We've let our allies down. I wonder if they will blacklist us. That's the next thing. I don't care what anybody says. For all the people... Trump derangement syndrome, you're quite right. Let's not forget he spends more money with NATO and has done more America to defend us. It'll be interesting to see the fallout. Like you, he doesn't get all things right. But you nailed it. The Mad Mullahs, it's a cancer of terrorism, sponsoring the Hamas, Houthis, Hezbollah, ISIS. Let's get that straight. Jez, they talk like they all want to sit down and do more colouring in and make bracelets to achieve peace. My God, the world's gone crazy, says Rachel. Hello to Philip from Fareham. Hello, Philip. The reason HMS Dragon... Oh, we've got an exclusive. And you don't... Breaking news, but this is exclusive. The reason, apparently, that HMS Dragon Your Feet has still not left Portsmouth is that Tesco's not delivered all the groceries and Amazon Prime has not yet all delivered all the ammunition. So that's the reason there. And Beth in Norfolk, you've made my morning. I thought you were off today. No. 5 days a week, 6:15 in the morning. So there is something to celebrate this morning, team. Are you ready for this? The first government evacuation flight from the Middle East landed at Stansted Airport. This is 6 days after the war started. It departed Oman's capital, Muscat, last night. That's having sat on the tarmac for 12 hours because there was a technical problem. That was my other favourite story. We can't even get a plane to get our people out that works. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And look, when people say that, the country's broken and, obviously it is. There are certain parts of it that's completely... But this is just on full display. We have, or should have, and I think we do still have, or I hope we still do have the best defence system, the best people that put on that uniform. I really do. I really do support, and I think it's maybe not their fault.
Can we try and get Priti Patel today, by the way? Can we just put a call in? She says, she's quite feisty, Starmer is failing in his duty as Prime Minister. Would you agree with Priti Patel?
100%. And I think lots of people would. Because, again, whatever you think about the decision of the war, there are consequences, and we're seeing that played out, and you have to respond to events. Whether you played a part in the initial strikes or not, events are happening. But they're happening at a time where the Prime Minister is sitting around a cabinet table with a large North London set of international human rights lawyers deciding about what we can say now to the public and not doing the things that need to be done. There's a humanitarian crisis for Brits that are seeing bombs over their head now, whether you're in Cyprus, whether you're in Dubai, or anywhere else in the Middle East, who might want to come home. So get them home. Do that part of the operation. That is your duty as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, to protect the British public.
Couldn't agree anymore. Matt, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. Matt loading the van in the wet Warrington. Yeah, so I just heard that Luxembourg will have their navy out before we have. Oh, what happened to our once ruled Britannia, our great naval force? Right? We can't even stop a dinghy, and we can't even get a battleship out of dock. And Starmer's saying, I know, we'll just have a little chat, we'll give him a hug. Me and Zach will nip down there and we'll sort all the world's problems out. We don't need to go bombing anyone, we'll just give him a big cuddle and let him have a few islands and stuff. Anyway, great to see you working a Friday. Have a good weekend, mate.
Wow. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. JK at Breakfast. Charlie Rowley here. This is scary. Jeff in Dorset. As a former Navy veteran, I found out last night that we're using a sailing ship, an old sailing ship, to train young officers, as there are no places for them on modern working ships. I mean, you heard that man say, didn't you, Matt? What has happened to the Royal Britannia? Yesterday we discovered that one of the reasons this boat... I haven't told you this. Do you remember the water? That it can only... It can only work in cold water, and it's too hot out in the Gulf, and that might affect the metal, and they've got to make some changes. You think I'm making this up, don't you? Right. I'm not. It's frightening. Jeremy Kyle, good morning. Good morning. Starmer is a total idiot. He hasn't got a clue about world fare. Starmer, wake up, get involved, send the troops, sort it out immediately. Help Trump and remember the British people across the Middle East. Fix this immediately. It is your job. Jason in Luton, that is his job.
Yeah, totally. And, you can see where his mindset's at, because as part of this hastily put together press conference that he, tried to salvage some sort of credibility yesterday to respond to all of these these questions and allegations, suggestions of not acting quick enough. He said that this could go on for months. Well, we don't want it to go on for months. Nobody wants it to go on for months. And it actually might be brought to, a head a bit quicker if you got involved, if you actually did what needed to be done.
It can't just be you and me who think this is barking mad. 0344 499 1000. Voice notes and text. Jez and Charlie, at this rate, they may as well refloat HMS Victory. That will get to Cyprus quicker than any destroyer we've got in Gosport. Top show. Jez the Charlie says, Bex, Margaret... Oh, she says, I'm currently in Tunisia. Is it safe in Tunisia? Anyway, she said, whoever voted these imbeciles in should be locked up for their own good and made to listen to Keith Stalin droning on for 24 hours a day as a punishment. I know we're meant to be a free country, but really, this is dumbing down our country unbelievably. Let's change the tack, though. Let's just try and do this and get through this in the right way. Let's stop throwing barbs at Starmer. Let's just flip it and go... In terms of his approach as a sort of pacifist and human rights, where do you think he thinks this is going to end? This is what I don't understand. Well, I see a man whose job is to protect Britain, defend the people. It doesn't matter whether his views are different to mine. Anybody with a brain cell can see that every single part of his response in the last 6 days has been politically based. It's not national security based. I had Ian Duncan Smith on Wednesday saying he believed he's a threat to national security. Michael Gove said the same, because they both said this man is trying to placate either the Muslim vote or the left of the party that have gone to vote for the Greens after Gorton and Denton. You cannot put that before national security, can you?
No, absolutely not. 100% you can't. And you would have thought that in a time of a national crisis, an international crisis, but one that is affecting many Brits across the Middle East and in Turkey and in Cyprus and in Dubai and many other of those states, when your back is against the wall as a politician and your party is down in the doldrums in terms of the polls, you have to step up.
Yeah.
You know, the Prime Minister, frankly, has got nothing to lose. He is so unpopular. He is down in the polls. You know, the local election results for them will be terrible. So why don't you just put all of that aside? Don't come under any pressure from anybody. Bunker down if you need to in number 10 and think to yourself, and just think to yourself, what is it that we have to do?
Can I say something that will go down like a lead balloon? I'm going to watch Sammy's face because he probably doesn't agree with a lot of what I say, but he's a good man and he's a Charlton fan. Margaret Thatcher was the least popular Prime Minister in the history of the world. The Falklands happened. She managed to send a navy 6,000 miles to protect 800 Brits, and she ruled for 10 years. You're right. If I was an advisor to Starmer, I'd go, mate, nobody gives a toss about breakfast clubs. Nobody gives a toss about international law. This is your chance to stand up. You were a spat, to stand up and go, OK, but you know the irony of this? He wanted to, and he was stopped by his cabinet, led by Ed Miliband.
Exactly.
He's a puppet man.
Exactly. The very same Ed Miliband that voted against airstrikes in Syria when he was leader of the opposition against David Cameron's, wanted to put that to the vote.
Yeah, remember that.
And I remember that specifically because I was working in Parliament at the time, and I was in the chamber just looking down from the gallery.
Putting his finger out of the chamber.
I was just working out where I was in the gallery. And I will never forget the overwhelming happiness of the Labour frontbenchers that were just so happy that they had blocked a Conservative vote, notwithstanding the fact that we actually saw on our TV screens Assad use chemical weapons against children. Now, I will never forgive him for that. I thought that was the wrong decision, and as it happens, we did go into Syria thereafter because we needed to, and it's the same approach. All Starmer needs to do is, even on Wednesday, when we had the spring statement, all somebody had to do was to say, right, we're going to have to fund our defences. We're going to have to make a statement as a Labour Prime Minister. We're now going to fund our defences and blame the Tories. 14 years of cuts, 14 years of not investment. We're now seeing a war on the ground. Money is going there. I'm sorry we're going to have to cut the benefits bill. I'm sorry to my Labour backbenchers if that's what you want. I'm sorry to the international aid. I'm sorry to the whatever else that we're spending on, all of these other niceties, hanging baskets in local communities. All of that is coming to an end because we are funding our defences, we are funding our troops, we are supporting British people, and we are getting them out.
Viral Rolly is on fire. 6:22, Pete, good morning.
They've got to the bottom of it now, haven't they? Ed Miliband. I reckon Ed Miliband wants all them attacks to carry on, though, in the Middle East, because he wants to see all those oil fields destroyed, doesn't he? That's great for his, we can't have that. See, if they'd have had solar power, all this wouldn't have been happening. It's just in total disarray, this government now. Desperate, desperate, desperate.
no doubt that the British government has acted in an incredibly weak, equivocal way. It's easy to start a war, very difficult to ensure that the aftermath doesn't descend into complete chaos.
What's your view of that outburst of Trump?
Well, Trump doesn't mince his words, but I think his criticism is justified. I mean, we should have realised where our national interest stood, and he should have expressed immediate support.
We have pursued a ludicrous energy policy, preceding this government, frankly, and all the knock-on effects to that for our economy are catastrophic.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:25. It's Friday morning. We're live across the United Kingdom. Friday, the 6th of March. You're waking up to the Breakfast Show on Talks, the home of common sense and free speech. There's a very funny sound in my ear. I don't know what's going on. Am I back? What's going on? Oh, there we go. Fantastic. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. Whatever you want to talk about, as ever, 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Lee, good morning.
Morning, Jesse. Lee again, in his van, from Scarborough. Veteran John Healey. When's Dragnaught or whatever it is, drag its feet, going to get there? It'll be finished. War will be over. There'll be another one somewhere else. What a absolute...
Brilliant. That's what I love about Alarm Clock Britain, making their point, and they're frustrated because they're getting their vans loaded at 6:30 in the morning to go out and pay tax. It's an absolute nightmare. Mark Rippington says, I've run out of credit sending too many texts to Talk, so I thought I might send a WhatsApp. You idiot, Starmer. Iran's evil dictator is dead, and whilst Israel and the US attack military sites, Iran is firing missiles at cities all over the Middle East and beyond to indiscriminately kill civilians. Keith would rather have a word with them. You utter useless plonker, says Mike in Whitby. Morning, Jez. Charlie. You are forgetting, of course, that Starmer would probably want to invite the Mad Mullers to sit round at a breakfast club and have a good old chat over some vegan yoghurt. That's the reality. I had one on yesterday. Not being rude. Fair play. I can't even remember his name. A Labour. And he said, Keir Starmer is doing a good job in a difficult situation. He's calm and he's considered. We're not Donald Trump's puppet. And by the way, the price of food's going down. I literally sat there and thought, I come from a different planet.
Yes.
I literally do. Sean's in Gloucester. Another day, another debacle. I'm furious. We are now actually seeing how Keith Starling is putting us in very real danger and the effects of upsetting and lying to our allies. British territory gets bombed and still he doesn't do anything apart, and this is Sean's view in Gloucester, appease the Muslim voters. Do you think so much of what Starmer is doing is based on not just the Muslim vote, but trying to placate everybody because he sees the threat of the Greens?
I do, but I think it's deeper than that. And because you asked in the last 5 minutes just about what is his end game, what is Starmer's strategy, and I think if you just take everything that he's done so far in office, he's been such an advocate for this coalition of the willing when it comes to the thing in the war in Ukraine.
Do you know what I call it? Am I allowed to? Coalition of the Willies, and just change Willies to another word that rhymes with Nicks. And it just sums it up for me. Well, just sit down and talk.
But this is his sort of mentality. He wants the coalition of the willing. He wants to renegotiate things with the EU. He said once he was more comfortable at the World Economic Forum, I think, than Westminster. He's someone that's never here because he's always on the international stage. I genuinely think at the end of this, he will want to be able to say to the country that he played a leading role in bringing an end to this war or this particular conflict, and he's still be negotiating. He still want to be at the negotiating table, bringing all these other countries to. It's all jaw, not war. And by the way, because there will be an immigration crisis coming from Iran, the number of people that come into this country illegally, as it currently happens, but in total. One of the top three countries is, you've guessed it, Iran. So we will now see, in the next few weeks, a huge migration, I think.
People are using that as an argument, though, for not going to war. They're saying to me, the reason we shouldn't be attacking Iran is because we'll end up with millions more coming to this country. Yeah. Well, sort the borders out then.
But also, just to counter that, you're absolutely right, but to counter that, if we don't have that regime in place, and you actually have a regime that millions and thousands of Iranians and Persians actually want, which isn't a regime that turns on its own people, that murders and massacres 40,000 as they did in January, it might be a safer place for them to actually stay or go back to and not have to come to the UK. So it has an impact on us, but Starmer's approach will be, okay, we won't send our Dragon, HMS Dragon to Cyprus to defend our own people, but we will welcome you with open arms if you want to flee Iran.
Can I come to that after this text from Cliff, which I think backs this up? Our country, Jez, to me seems very divided, and I wonder just how much support there would actually be amongst the general public to joining the attacks. Not as much as we think. I agree with that. But what he said, though, is we're seeing a rise of a new kind of left-wing thinking, including Trump and Farage derangement syndrome. Britain is so different now to what I remember, and I genuinely do fear for my kids and my grandchildren. It's the sort of country that I grew up in. Louise nails this as well. She says, during the Falkland Islands, HMS Antrim was off the coast of Gibraltar, 98% war ready, instructed to go to war. Within 4 hours, docked in Gibraltar, 105% war ready, and it sailed. 8 hours from receiving instructions, it was heading towards the Falklands. What the is going on? She's right. Yeah. And John Healey, I thought, gave it away on that clip when he said, we were aware weeks ago of a build-up in the Gulf, so I sent 4 planes and a couple of things. Why did you not send a ship? You made a really good point. A lot of people saying, what's the, at the end of this, how many migrants are going to flee Iran and come to this country and other parts of Europe? I don't usually salute a Labour politician, because she's not going to have a future. But Shabana Mahmood seems to... I'm not saying she'll see it through before you smile, but the words about how she wanted in the past to sort this caused great anger amongst Labour. But the truth came out yesterday, Shabana, didn't it? Labour plans, just honestly, if you're having a bad morning about the war, this isn't going to make it any better. Labour plans handing failed asylum seeker families... not an exit visa. Ready for this, Sammy? £40,000 tax-free to leave our country. If that's not an insult to you, the taxpayer, I don't know what the hell is. The Home Office has started informing families they're eligible for lump sums of 10 grand or upwards, 10 grand a person, for agreeing to go voluntarily. Can you imagine? Can you imagine any other country in the world where they go, listen, you're here illegally, you broke in, you shouldn't have been here. We're sorry we've actually only put you in a 3-star hotel, but here's 40 grand to sod off. I literally am going to have to... I don't want to be like this, Charlie, but what does that say to working Brits now?
Yeah, I know, you're absolutely right. And just when they're...
There it is, failed asylum seeker. Look, 40 grand to leave the country.
Yeah. No, totally. And look, you're absolutely right. Just when there might have been a glimmer of hope or light in the Labour Party where you thought Shabana Mahmood was doing the right thing when it came to toughening up our immigration laws, making sure that maybe if you do come to the UK and you are granted refugee status, that lasts for, I think it's 18 months.
Yes, it's 18 months.
So it's a fixed period of time before hopefully your country is safe to go back to. All of these things that I think are quite sensible and people were behind. But then, of course, as you say, you get this story. And I just think if this ever came across... my desk or anyone else's desk for that matter.
What's a desk? I haven't got a desk.
And an official said, right, if you're a special advisor in the Home Office or you're a junior official, you could be the most junior of officials, I think, in the Home Office and say, we think we've got a plan. Can we put this to the Home Secretary? The answer would be absolutely not, because in the first meeting of just seeing this plan and asking the question, do you think it will be okay or acceptable to pay £40,000, up to £40,000 to a family just to return if they're here illegally?
Can we just have that out?
The answer
There's
is no.
40 grand to leave despite the fact you came to our country illegally, and allegedly we are skint, and allegedly we can't even afford to buy a bleeding warship.
Yeah.
That's what's right. That's why I always get cynical. Whatever the government, by the way, I should make this point. Because they find money when they need to, don't they?
Yeah,
always find money.
Well, exactly. Well, we're finding money apparently for this scheme, which is going to go to 150 people just as a trial, in order, as some, clever dick somewhere that's probably gone to Oxford or Cambridge and studied PPE or classics or something like that, has thought, no, but in total this would bring the whole cost down. No, it won't, man or woman. Did nobody even say during a meeting?
No common sense.
Do you not think that this will be a pull factor?
No.
Do you not think that this will attract people who just clearly who flagrantly don't have a claim, or just turn up on our shores and say, frankly, I know I didn't have a claim, I know I shouldn't be here, but can I have my 40k, please?
Well, Nikki in Huntingdon, who says, hello, lovely Charlie, and Jezza. Where did that come from?
Hello.
She says, I came to England from Belfast in 1991 because I was fed up with the Troubles. If I say this morning that I'll go back, can I have 40 grand?
Yeah.
I mean, for people who think we're making it up, we're not. It's absolutely extraordinary. Morning, James.
Hiya, JK. Great show, as always. what the F-bomb is going on with this country. So Keir Starmer is doing an appalling job to our country. You know, Luxembourg beating us to Cyprus. It's absolutely outrageous. And whoever voted this guy in needs a head banging against the wall.
People are more angry that that Luxembourg have beaten us to Cyprus. I'm still seething that the French-sitting French got there before us. You're right. Whatever the politics of the government, whatever, you have to be in it.
Yeah.
To be at the negotiating table. And you know, I have said this repeatedly, not everybody agrees with it, but, you know, take Trump out of the equation. America has wiped our backside for years, people, whether people like that or not. NATO wouldn't exist. It was only when he went, I'm not giving you that money anymore unless you lot make defence a priority, that all countries in Europe who'd relied on America for years went, oh, perhaps we should spend some money. I think it's an absolute outrage. While I'm outraged, and I'm sorry, it's only 25 to 7 in the morning, and you're probably waking up thinking he's got it about him again. Zach Polanski, hypno-tits, the man that leads the Green Party, the party that want to legalise heroin, and also want to open our borders, give back our nuclear weapons, and basically sit down and have a chat with everybody, yeah? He laughed at Churchill's vandalism. The statue of Winston Churchill the other day was vandalised in the city of London. He was accused of laughing yesterday at the desecration of the statue. The Green Party leader was said to be amused as fellow London Assembly members spoke out after it was daubed with pro-Palestinian graffiti. I've had this argument with my daughter. She'll say to me, university obviously deranged, she'll say, oh, he was a racist. And I say, you be speaking German. Winston Churchill wasn't in any way, like Trump, a perfect human being. But let me tell you, you wouldn't be where you are. I'll argue the toss with anybody about that. He's a joke. And the more that the media blows smoke up Polanski's backside, the more I'm going to tell people the truth. He's dangerous, isn't he?
He is, but the more that he pulls focus and the more that he says what he says, in particularly this situation, it will drive people to recognising that actually this guy, well, he's second in the polls. You know, the Green Party are now second in the polls, in national polls. So this guy has got a chance, small but significant, of getting more MPs in the House of Commons with this kinds of policy, with this kind of politics, with these kinds of policies. That will drive people who didn't turn up, funny enough, at the last election, because I think a lot of people did stay at home, which is why Labour might have got in. But, you know, put that to one side. People will be saying, we cannot have this. And it will be a very clear choice, I think, at the next election, whether it is somebody like the Greens, because you're not going to vote Labour, or Reform. And I think people will be more...
This is not pro-Reform or the Tories, but we need to have a debate at how mad these people are. It's not going to wash to say, let's actually forget that people have attacked the way he dressed. I'm not interested. I'm not. I know I joke about, you know, his past, but let's talk about his policies. They are dangerous. 70% tax, open borders, give away your weapon, have no military, legalise drugs. I watched him the other day. He said, if you legalise drugs, it takes away drug dealers. Try saying that to a parent who's lost a kid to heroin, you complete and utter idiot. I don't get it. I think it's dangerous. Ian, good morning.
Morning, Jez. Ian from Unferth. Firstly, I don't think it's advisable describing Charlie as a viral sensation. Sounds like the poor lad needs antibiotics. Secondly, the government. This is what happens when you've got a government that's bereft of talent. They're constantly fighting fires because they're not proactive. They're only ever reactive. And to coin a phrase by Mr. Trump, they don't know what they're doing. Happy Friday, chaps. Look forward to the weekend. Keep us sane. Cheers, Jezza. Ta-da.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 20 to 7. I'm here with the viral Charlie Rowley, who lost his rag on Wednesday and he went completely nuts. You're not on antibiotics. I mean viral in terms of... Well, you might be on antibiotics.
Well, I'll be straight up the clinic.
Won't be the first time. 0344 499 1000. Shawnee, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby here. After listening to the Prime Minister yesterday telling us that we should be appeasing the mullahs and negotiating with terrorists, this man's lost the plot, mate. You know, this is the same man only a couple of months ago who told us that we have to be prepared to go to war with Russia. Yet we can't even defend our bases in Cyprus. Great show, mate.
Desperate and deluded, Keir Starmer. I've got another clip. We are resolute in our response so far. Listen to this. Apparently. No, it's not happening. Is it? Hello?
So I want you to know that your government is resolute in our response, at home and abroad. We will do everything we can to protect British lives, uphold British values, and safeguard the national interest.
I look at Charlie Rowley. Charlie Rowley's looking slightly confused. What's the matter?
You know, when you go out and do these kinds of speeches, there will be someone that will go through it line by, or should be someone that goes through it line by line to make sure that actually what you're... How can you say that? You know, with you're on the front page of every national newspaper. You have been for the last 3 days. Because
out of your depth.
And how can you legitimately say to the British people, as the Prime Minister, that we have done everything that we can, that we are doing everything?
It's a lie.
You're not. You haven't. You've been caught short. So you can accept that. Just say it.
Whatever your politics, right? And if people could get the Trump derangement syndrome out of their heads, you've just heard Keir Starmer, right? This is the leader of the free world. Donald Trump, last night on Iran, go.
And I'm once again calling on all members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the military and the police to lay down their arms. They're only going to be killed. And we'll be giving you really the right side of history, because that's what it is. So you'll be perfectly safe with total immunity, or you'll face absolutely guaranteed death. And I don't want to see that.
I mean, love him or loathe him, and there'll be plenty of people who go, that's outrageous. Christians love it. Well, at least you know where you stand, don't you?
Exactly.
You might not like where you stand, but at least you know. That's all I want. Do you know, I said yesterday, and I did mean this, there's nothing about Jeremy Corbyn that I could ever like or agree with. But begrudgingly at the end of the 2019 election, I thought, you know what? He fervently believes in his left-wing madness. He stood on a mandate and he got 34% of the vote. The thing that infuriates so many about Starmer is every decision, it seems, is to placate either the Parliamentary Labour Party, different parts of the community, different facets of whatever. That is not leadership. Leadership is about making difficult and sometimes wrong decisions and being honest with your electorate. If that had wound you up, it seems to have wound you up even more that yesterday we discovered, when I say yesterday, we discovered it today, and it's causing great consternation. Why would it? Failed families... Asylum families, if you came here illegally, by the way, good morning to you. Thank you for tuning in, your free radio. I hope everything's good. Did you sleep all right? Have you got some bread and toast for breakfast? Because it's OK, because we're not going to throw you out. We're going to give you £40,000 to leave, which is lovely. So thank you for breaking in. Thank you for having a house and a car and a credit card and basically not working. Here's 40 grand tax-free, which is the equivalent to about £70,000. And we were going to give that to you to go back to wherever you've come from. Thank you so much. In the meantime, Great Britain is on its arse. Mark in Birmingham, I wonder how many illegals have arrived here that could even turn out to be sleeper cells that could soon attack on our street. That, for me, is the big issue next, and that's a really good point, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why, you know, people... I know it's the easy decision to sort of say, look, we shouldn't be getting involved in another conflict in the Middle East, you know, leave them to it, you know, we can't be... It's not for the UK's... it's not the UK's problem. It very much is, because, you know, when MI5 and MI6, or Secret Intelligence Service, when they actually raise their head above the parapet and say to the public, actually, we foiled, as they did, I think at the back end of last year, we foiled 20 plots, terrorist plots, state-funded by Iran. We are in this game, I'm afraid, whether we like it or not. We are targeted by Iran, by this tyrannical regime, which is exactly why, just to very quickly to your point earlier on, and to Sean, who said, we can't negotiate with terrorists. And I think that is absolutely right. And he's called it out for what it is. But the difference is you've got Keir Starmer saying, come to the negotiating table, we can de-escalate and work with that tyrannical regime. That's one thing which I think is... Or you have got Donald Trump, which says, you know what? If you do want to walk away from the regime and step down and disappear, you'll be fine. You'll survive. Clear off. That's a different kind of negotiation.
I get that. I get that.
But it means that you're not staying imposed. Starmer's way is saying, put down your arms. We'll talk about this in a lovely, cuddly, furry way.
That's not the reality of the world, though, is it?
Exactly, and that's why, again, love him, I think Donald Trump is right. If you want to walk away from the regime, which you should, that's what the US wants, that's what the rest of the world wants. Fine, go, because you're not playing a part in the future. Or you're going to get killed.
I saw one of those. I don't know what it's called, memes or whatever online, and there is a serious side to this, but it was hysterical. It set the question to Kamala Harris: what would you say to the Iranian mullahs who bomb people? And she don't. He said to Joe Biden, what would you say to the mad mullahs in Iran about bombing people? He said, don't. He said to Donald Trump, he said, I'm going to bomb them. I'm going to kill them. I'm going to get them done. And you just think, well, it's not everybody's language, and I understand that. But good morning, JK. Quick question for the lovely Charlie. You're garnering viral love. While Starmer reigns as PM, what possible use is the UK to NATO? John from Paddenham in Lancashire. Thoughts?
Well, sorry, say that again.
What use is the UK to NATO when our Prime Minister is so utterly inept?
Well, exactly, and this has huge implications because, as you say, if France are even able to deploy their military might to go and defend the UK, this has implications on everything else. Because you bet anything, because the French that are still upset that we left the EU will, that we give.
Is that Elvis or the French? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Ooh la la. Ooh la la. That we've given 700 million to help supposedly stop the small boats crossings. We're now going to see more of these small boat crossings, but I bet you anything. The French are going to say, oh, actually, we used that 700 million to defend Brits when you were facing when Brits in the EU Brits in the Middle East were facing those bombs coming over from Iran. So we've taken that money, we've helped to defend you. Actually, you need to give us a bit more to help stop the boats even
This
further.
is quite a strong text, by the way. JK and Charlie, Phil in Coventry. It's Friday, it's the weekend. I cannot listen to that lying, traitorous, Britain-hating piece of Ayatollah Starmer anymore. I don't use the word lightly, but I absolutely hate him. Have a great weekend. That's brilliant, isn't it? For Christ's sake, Jezza, says Bruce, 40 grand to go back to where you came from. Why don't they give us, the working people of Britain, 40 grand to go, as they obviously don't want us here? I'd happily go with 40 grand in my back pocket and live like all the illegals in Iran right now, says Bruce in Lincolnshire. But my favourite text this morning is quite simply this. Jez, France, 10 points. Luxembourg, 9 points. The United Kingdom, le Royaume-Uni, 9 points. It's absolutely true, isn't it?
It totally.
Morning to Graham Brooks, who's listening in a very posh part of Sussex. Good to have you on board, me old son. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Have we done Andy? We're going to do Andy. Andy, you're on.
Morning, cheers. It's Andy from Hull. It's just a question. Why does Keir Starmer only talk in sound bites of 2 or 3 words at a time, sending everybody to sleep? God, he's so dull. So who actually speaks like that? I thought he'd been to see a voice coach or something like that. But it ain't. I'd get my money back. It hasn't done him any good, has it? Oh, we just need some leadership at a time like this. We need strong leadership from a strong Prime Minister. Nearly said President, crikey. Blimey. Have a good day.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 7. We're live across the UK. This is Talk, the home of common sense, and of course the home of alarm clock Brits. And you're waking up to the front page of the Daily Mail, which says, we can't put a warship to sea, Trump's frozen the PM out, Britain is a bleeding laughing stock. But rest assured, my dear, dear friends, deluded and desperate Starmer came out fighting yesterday. He said, we should negotiate with the brutal, tyrannical terrorist regime. I ask you this, are we the laughing stock, Charlie Rowley, of the world? I'll tell you, listen, Perry, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. It's already started. I noticed that diesel, I drive for a living, do about 70,000 miles a year. I noticed diesel has jumped up 10p a litre this morning. I understand there's a war and that it's going to go up. But what does annoy me is when I filled up last night, I said to the cashier, I said, have you had another tanker in then? He went, no, it's not due in for a couple of days. Which means they put the price up on diesel they already had in storage in the tanks. It's just a rip-off. We've all been conned. It just really annoys me and frustrates me. We're all being taken for mugs by these fuel companies, these fuel garages.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and I'm going to make his morning even worse, because not only are you waking up to that headline in the Mail, and almost every single newspaper says that Starmer is just, a complete cretin. We also broke the news that Shabana Mahmood yesterday, it's just like, I could do it again. You're going to ruin people's mornings, Charlie. People, if you broke into this country illegally, we put you in a hotel, you have never worked, you don't speak the language, you probably brought your family, and we want you to leave, the Labour government are going to give you 40 grand to leave, because that's the sort of softener. JK, says Robert Morris, if you don't stop saying this, I literally have to call a paramedic. My blood pressure is spiking. It's unbelievable. Yeah. There's a man trying to earn a living. Petrol's gone through the roof, diesel. Supermarkets and forecourts will make their dosh. There's people listening to this show that have already done 3 hours or are stuck in a traffic jam or come back from an all-night shift, and what? We're going to give 40 grand, £40,000 to leave this country. It's madness, man. Madness.
Yeah, totally. And, people would think, this is hilarious if it wasn't so true. It is funny if it wasn't true, because how on earth can anybody think that it's right? And for people that, as you say, come into the country illegally, that blatantly don't have a claim, that aren't fleeing refuge. We've talked about it before. There are people that come over in those small boats. They can't tell us who they are, where they've come from, what conflict they're fleeing. They throw their passports overboard. They say that they're 15 and they've got a beard longer than mine.
And you are my beard, so I know that that's quite true.
Yeah, exactly. And then not only will they then be put up in accommodation, they will fight through the legal system to prevent their deportation, a legal system that taxpayers, hardworking taxpayers and Brits that are getting up this morning, they'll be funding that bill even before we've packed them on the plane or wherever we've taken them to be deported, with a nice lump sum, a credit card of 40k.
This has gone Charlie Rowley viral. We're getting... This is Anna, she's absolutely right. She said thousands of Brits in the last 2 hours have started posting on social media begging the government that they're very happy to quit the United Kingdom if they get... Sam, would you leave for 40 grand? You'd go, wouldn't you, for 40 grand? I'd go to Dubai. We had the woman on yesterday. She's been there 4 years. She literally came on and said, as a missile went overhead, I reckon I'm safer here than in Sadiq Khan's London, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
I don't know where we end. Honestly, I am going to have to go and get some therapy this weekend. Good morning to Rog. He says, why aren't MI5 and many other security services releasing a statement, Charlie, that this government is actually a national security danger to the United Kingdom?
Because they work, obviously, in lockstep with the government. And
Sir Richard Dearlove was excellent the other day. I'd love to get him back. He said he's an absolute disgrace.
Yes, he's a great man.
Trev's in Boston. I think that's in Lincolnshire. What simple-minded numpty would laugh at the Churchill statue being defaced, our greatest ever Brit? Well, we are all laughing when we found out that Zach was a hypnotist. This is about the story, page 10. Polanski, the leader of the Greens, that apparently are in second place. Don't take it too seriously, my friends, because this organisation laughed at Churchill's vandalism. Whether you love what Churchill did, what he did for this country was extraordinary, and that should tell you everything about the Greens. Jezza Starmer's speeches remind me of a primary school headmaster talking to a group of 9-year-olds in assembly week and inept. Sean in Gloucester says, didn't Keith Stalin say not long ago that we are now on a war footing? Must be those fully legal wars with advance notice. What a moron. Doesn't Russia now see how defenceless the United Kingdom is? There's the point.
Absolutely. And this is why it's so important that we are able to defend ourselves, but show our allies and show our partners that we can work together, because this only plays into, as that text says, Russia's hands. What must they be thinking about our capability? When Sir Keir Starmer convenes another meeting of the coalition of the willing and says, right, we are going to be, what must President Zelensky in Ukraine be thinking? That, all of those empty words, empty promises, if the UK has pledged that it could help and support in any way, we can't even defend ourselves.
And can I point out, Tigger, I don't know, I'm sure this is brilliant. Luxembourg have sent a boat to Cyprus. We're still waiting, and they're bloody landlocked. Morning, Mike.
Morning, Jezza. Well, it's Mike, veteran, 4-war veteran, including Northern Ireland. So I've seen all this sectarianism before, and a version of that 2.0, like I said, tried to say before, has come here. And if anybody doesn't realise what that is or what's happening, yeah, believe me, the bearing brunt of it is not fun. I lived it. And then you've got Starmer claiming that he wants to save British lives. I mean, you've got to ask yourself the question, really. As embarrassed as we have been on the international stage, think of our boys and girls, yeah? They signed up, they knew that what they were signing up for, to protect this country. And he's talking about saving lives. What is the point in having a military if you can't even use it to defend the country? It's total sham. It's a sham. It's shambolic. And I'm done with all this. I am done.
It's a serious response to the frustration people feel. It's been an amazing week. Charlie, thank you so much indeed. Back next week with us?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, absolutely.
Charlie Viral Roly. No, he doesn't need cream. He needs your support. Thank you, Charlie.
But you are the only medicine. That is this every morning, 6 till 10, I think it is.
Well done.
Although I'm here for the first hour. But
Good man. Charlie Ray back next week. We're back after the news at 7 with Ben Habib. Got some great guests this morning, including Ben Wallace, former Defence Secretary. The news at 7 is next on Talk.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defence of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes, is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning. Just gone 7 o'clock. You're welcome to Talk Breakfast. It is, of course, the home of common sense, and it's where the nation comes to talk. Your views on the day's news, as ever, via the phones to your voice note or a live call 0344 499 1000. Your text to 87222. And you're waking up on Friday, the 6th of March, to an astonishing headline in the Mail. Desperate and deluded. That's what they call Starmer in the Mail. Desperate and deluded. And here's the truth. What they say is, we can't put a warship to sea. Trump's been frozen out by Trump, Starmer has. Britain's the laughing stock. But in all of that, don't worry, my friends. Don't worry about anything. Don't worry about the fact that Luxembourg sent a boat and they're landlocked and we can't even get HMS dragging your feet out of Portsmouth. Don't fret about that. Because our Prime Minister, in his infinite wisdom as an international human rights lawyer, believes we should sit round the negotiating table with people who sponsor other people to kill people. This is our Prime Minister yesterday.
Iran can end this now. They should refrain from further strikes, give up their weapons programs, and cease the appalling violence and repression against the Iranian people. This is the route to de-escalation and back to the negotiating table.
No, it's not. Sorry, it's too late. You need to be defending British people who are in Cyprus. Let me play you a clip. Yesterday I was told by a Labour MP, everything's fine in Cyprus. You're over-egging it, the right-wing media. And what did he call it? The mainstream media are being really unfair. We've got it under control. Defence Secretary John Healey went to Cyprus yesterday. Whilst he's doing this interview, listen to the noises in the background, because I'd say there are ballistic missiles heading his way. John Healey.
The Iranians always said that they would do it widespread. They would target US military assets around the region and anybody else. So did it come as a surprise to you that Akrotiri was targeted?
So weeks before the conflict started, I'd moved extra jets, air defence systems.
But none of them can defend against ballistic missiles.
And defending the island. We always will defend, we will fight in coordination with allies. And we had US destroyers also in the area. So,
But they can't defend against ballistic missiles. The Type 45 destroyer can, and it's not here yet. You know, the French have got a frigate here, I think, as of last night.
Sure.
I mean, the point, right. I know they're closer, but they got it to sea immediately.
Absolutely right. And if you are, in your own words, John Healey, prepared to fight in coordination with your allies, I simply put this again to the British people via Talk. Even if you disagree, right, we all have different opinions about whether or not we should have been shoulder to shoulder with the Americans and with the Israelis, even if you feel that we shouldn't have been involved in that first wave. When a ballistic missile lands 800 yards from a school where young British servicemen kids are playing in RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus, the very role of your Prime Minister is to defend not only this country but its people. Luxembourg is bloody landlocked and have sent a boat. We are a laughing stock. I say a very good morning to a man who I absolutely know would agree with me. Ben Habib, former Deputy Leader of Reform. How I honestly, this week, Ben, I don't think I've been more embarrassed to be British, and I hate to even contemplate saying that.
Yeah, well, it's not the first thought that comes to mind. I'm embarrassed by our ineptitude, by our government's ineptitude.
Yeah.
You know, if you cast your mind back to 1991, the first Gulf War, which was a just war, a war to liberate Kuwait. The British Armed Forces were spectacular.
No!
You know, we did bombing runs which the Americans couldn't undertake.
I completely agree. You cut out there. Sorry, mate. You cut out for a second there. When you look at Starmer's response, when you consider the way he's acted, how do we look internationally, Ben?
We look weak. And it's not just a matter of how he reacted. It's the fact that we are incapable of getting our act together. As you've rightly pointed out, that destroyer is still in the British harbour. It hasn't even left port yet. Perhaps it's leaving today, but it hasn't even left port yet. We rule the waves.
No, we
we
don't.
now can't get a flipping ship out to a war zone in under 2 weeks. It is absolutely pathetic. And then when he says the route to de-escalation is for Iran to disarm, well, what's he been smoking? There is no chance. There's no chance of Iran disarming.
No.
They're not going to, the mullahs, after 50 years of being belligerent, creating proxy wars across the Middle East, perpetrating terrorism across the West, why would they suddenly say, well, okay, fine, okay, folks, we relent, we're just going to disarm, we're going to become nice guys, we're going to give up our nuclear program, you can now trust us, let's all sit around and kumbaya. I'm sorry about that, that was 47 years of mistakes. It's absolutely absurd.
It is absurd, and actually, and I want to go back to this because I think this is the point that is the most important, and we've got such a stellar lineup today to discuss this. This is not me being advocating we should have been in that first wave, right? That's irrelevant to me now. I'll bring it back to what I said to you before. The job of any Prime Minister in this country, male or female, whatever political persuasion or party, is to defend this country and defend its people. This man, this is the thing for me, is patently unqualified, morally, psychologically, ethically, whichever way you want to describe, to lead the British people right now. It turns out he was in favour of supporting the Americans. But Red Ed Miliband and the cabinet cohorts who have never done a day's job in their lives decided that it wouldn't look great. And I would respectfully ask you this question, because Ian Duncan Smith answered it unequivocally on Wednesday. I think that this government is guilty of putting their own political survival before the national interest of the United Kingdom. And that, for me, is the worst thing about this, Ben. Dreadful.
Yeah. I mean, I think they are putting their own political ideologies, which is basically anti-British, ahead of our national interest. They stand against this country. Ed Miliband stands against an energy-independent, low-energy, pro-industrial United Kingdom. He stands against that. Keir Starmer wants to take our borders down, hand the UK back to the European Union. That's what he's doing. All this shuttling between Brussels and London at the moment is effectively giving back the United Kingdom to the European Union. This time we won't even have any representation. At the same time, they're making our military incapable. And of course, we've got this continued assault on the United Kingdom by people coming across in dinghies. The US can sink an Iranian destroyer in the Indian Ocean. They argue it's the first one that's sunk by a torpedo since World War II. And we can't stop a flipping dinghy in the Channel. That is the extent to which this country has sunk. And it is putting a sign on our foreheads that we are vulnerable to any enemy action that wishes to take the United Kingdom. We are a complete basket case of a country. We've forgotten what it means to be a country. We don't have borders. We don't defend ourselves. We don't make decisions in the national interest. We are hijacked by ideologies which stand against our people and our country. And that is what the Labour government are giving succor to. And they're stuck on this bandwagon and they will not get off it. And I think the starkest reminder of how absolutely stupid our Prime Minister is, inviting a number of Muslims to the Great Hall in Westminster a few days ago to an iftar party, and then addressing them and saying, I'm with you, I'm not bombing Iran. So he knows there are constituencies in this country who, for their own religious and ideological reasons, are against us attacking Iran, and he is giving them the decision on whether or not this country does what's right for this country. I actually think we should have been part of that first wave. I think we should have had the RAF standing shoulder to shoulder with the Americans and bombing Tehran and making it utterly clear that the West is united and that we will not tolerate this terroristic theocracy any longer. But the Americans didn't even inform us that they were going to attack. That's how much respect they've lost for us. They told the Poles, they didn't tell us. We are losing the plot. We need to change the way this country is governed. We've got to do it quickly.
It's really interesting, and it's about leadership, and I concur with everything you've said. Leadership is not easy. Leadership is about making decisions that sometimes you perhaps wouldn't make, but you have to stand tall to the door. I use Maggie as an example. She was the most Charlie Reddy played an interesting game earlier. He was saying, you know, you are the most useless Prime Minister. Your poll rating is lower than anybody. There is not a cat in hell's chance of you being re-elected. And somewhere you'd sit in 10 Downing Street, you'd think about Thatcher before the Falklands. I'm not saying you use a war, but she showed what Britain was capable of by saying to those people on the Falkland Lines, the 850 of them who were Brits, we're going to be there for you. Starmer could have turned it, but no. When I watch him, on the one hand, I think this is all about party politics. I am absolutely convinced every single day he is utterly out of his depth. And for the people who go, oh, you're just, you know, you're being anti... No. This is us. This is now. This is the real world. I don't have to agree, Ben, with everything Donald Trump says or does. But we are a laughingstock. The Mail is right. This is brilliant. This is. Listen to this. This is somebody who's gone to work this morning, and he's gone. He said, I live in Cyprus. I feel safe, but I cannot believe that my government hasn't done something for me. Luxembourg is landlocked, Ben Habib, for Christ's sake, and they've sent a boat.
We can't do it. We've lost the ability to do it.
Have we or the will? The ability or the will?
Well, the will went, and then the ability followed. And you know, you look at there's a photograph of the British Navy in 1953 at the coronation of the Queen, and it stretches out as far as the eye can see. This was after World War II, after we'd been through a hell of a lot of trouble. We still had a formidable military, as evidenced by Margaret Thatcher's ability to go all the way across the world to the Falklands to defend 3,000 British citizens and 10,000 sheep. And now we can't even get a flipping boat out of our docks. I mean, it's just so depressing. It's so depressing. We've got the Indian Air Force training RAF pilots. Indian Air Force training RAF pilots. How the hell did that happen?
Can I just say to people tuning in, because Ben and I are right on one this morning, we've got the former Defence Secretary Ben Wallace, we've got the former Commander-in-Chief of UK Land Forces, General Sir Nick Parker, we've got Sir Simon Mayle, who was the British Army General in charge as well. We've got loads. Ben, I'm going to ask people in Alarm Clock Britain to take a breath, because that's bad enough. But what I read on page 10 of the Mail this morning has left people deranged with madness. Did you know that if you break into this country illegally and you live here in a hotel with your family or without, and you get given money not to work, and you probably don't speak English, that the Labour Party, under Shabana Mahmood's leadership here in the Home Office, have come up with a fantastic answer, ladies and gentlemen. And there it is on page 10 of the Daily Mail. Failed asylum families will be paid £40,000 tax-free cash to leave this country. So to every working Brit who got up this morning or has done a night shift and pays tax, don't bother. And do you know the saddest thing, Ben? I've had thousands of people already saying, I'll leave, give me 40 grand and I'll sod off out of England right now. That is, I mean, that's another thing that sends me over the edge, man.
It is absolutely absurd. What they should be doing is repealing the Human Rights Act, kicking the European Convention of Human Rights and its court out of the fabric of British legislation, and enforcing our borders, refusing entry to these dinghies, removing all benefits. Anyone here illegally should be arrested, put incarcerated, and then held incarcerated until either they voluntarily go home or they're deported. It's as simple as that. You don't meet a threat by trying to bargain with it and incentivize it. You meet a threat by force, head-on force. You make a hostile environment for that threat in the country, and you prevent that threat from manifesting itself. That's how you do it. It's basic. It's basic.
I'm going to play your voice note while you and I quietly seethe. Boz, good morning.
Morning, JK. Breakfast team, travelling Boz here. So 40 grand. So everyone breaks in, gets a hotel for about 4 months, brings their family as well, has dental care, has an operation maybe on the national wealth, and then gets 40 grand to go back. Fantastic. And then it's like a relay team. The next lot come in. It's ridiculous. Just shut the borders down completely. If you've got no documents, you're not allowed in, okay? You arrive at an airport, You ain't got a document, you're not allowed in. Let's get some common sense here, eh?
Ben, when I do this and people, I come off where they go, you're very angry. I don't even understand how a person with no brain cells think that you are going to sell to the British people right now that you'll give 40 grand tax-free to a family who have broken into our country illegally. For all those people who today will work and pay tax, whose food bills, whose energy bills, whose just general life has gone through. It is an absolute pee-take. I don't... It's beyond my comprehension, mate. I don't get it.
I mean, for the average Briton, that's having to earn 70 or 80,000 quid to get the 40 grand.
Yeah.
And they just get it, having broken into the country legally and having had it determined that they shouldn't be here, that they should leave. These are failed asylum applicants. No, the whole thing is a joke. We're just living in some kind of dystopian nightmare where the United Kingdom is being dissembled in front of our eyes on purpose.
Do you think, on a serious note, to finish, because we can rail all day, I mean, listen to this quickly, right? Michael, 40 grand would have covered my tuition fees at medical school instead of a lifetime of debt, but clearly these people who break into our country with no right to be here are more deserving than the indigenous population. That sums it up. Do you think that this ideology, and it's a great... Oh, God, I've just seen Lammy on Sky. That's going to turn my stomach as well. Do you think that this will ever change? Do you think that the groundswell of can we please talk common sense will return?
It will change. It has to change. What I'm hoping is that it changes peacefully at the ballot box, because at some point the British people will rise up. And what we've got to do as politicians, our job is to ensure that we act before that happens, that we deliver for the British people. Starmer, you talked about his political survival. If he wants to survive, he needs to change his party's ideology. He needs to listen to what he's being told. The polls mark him down at 17-18% because they hate the British people hate what he's doing. If he wants to be popular and survive, it's simple. I can give him 5 points he needs to adopt, and if he adopts them, his popularity would soar. He would see off every other political party. 5 things: get rid of the Human Rights Act, get rid of the Equalities Act, cut welfare back, cut taxes, and make us ditch net zero and make us energy independent again. Those 5 things, and the British and the United Kingdom would be saved like that, and his popularity would go through the roof. He hasn't got the courage to do it because he's surrounded by a bunch of idiots.
Excuse my French, I don't think he can fart without asking the cabinet anymore, the Parliamentary Labour Party. He wanted to cut $5 billion off a welfare bill that needs tens of billions cut, and in the end it was nothing. The man, I mean, allegedly the other day he wanted to support the Americans, and Red Ed Miliband led a cabinet revolt against it. He is utterly, apart from being incompetent, he can't do anything, Ben, and as we sit and watch, it gets worse and worse. It's lovely to have you on because it makes me realise that I'm not going mad alone, because it's quite a sad life at the moment, because I sit here, apart from the listeners, thinking, is any day going to... Because it's worrying, mate, right? It's worrying.
It is very worrying. It is very worrying. And there will come a time where peace in this country ceases to be. And we've got to make sure, as politics, we've got to make sure that doesn't happen. We've got to deliver for the country before the people start removing us forcefully.
Ben, an absolute pleasure as ever. We love having you on, leader of Advance UK. Ben Habib, thank you very much indeed. 7:20, we're live across the UK. It's Talk Breakfast. So, Starmer, well, on Monday, Donald Trump said he was disappointed in him. On Tuesday, he said the special relationship's not what it was meant to be. On Wednesday, he said, I'm hardly dealing with Churchill. On Thursday, he describes him as a loser. And today, he says that he should have been behind his war effort without question. But don't worry, team. Deluded and desperate Keir says, we should sit round the negotiating table with those mad mullahs who like to bomb people. Morning, Den.
Morning, Jeremy. The thought of giving out 40,000 quid and a free hotel to migrants is a massive pull factor. It's a pull factor. It's not a deterrent. And Shabana Mahmood knows full well what she's doing. So does this Labour government.
current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up! I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. 7:25. It is Friday. What is it? The 6th of March, and you're waking up to the home of Common Sense and the home of Alarm Clock Brits. If you want to be part of this show, as ever, on the station 0344 499 1000 for your voice notes and your calls. Your text to 87222. You're waking up to the news, as the Mail put it. We can't put a warship to sea. Trump's frozen Starmer out. Britain's frankly a laughingstock. I'll add the caveat that Luxembourg, that's in fact landlocked, already sent a frigate to Cyprus, but HMS Dragging Your Feet can't even leave Portsmouth yet because apparently it's not ready. Desperately deluded Starmer yesterday said we should get round the negotiating table with these brutal, tyrannical murderers. That's definitely the way forward. John Healey, yesterday, a Labour MP saying there's no problem in Cyprus. We'll say a clip of John Healey proving that drones are all over the place and the ineptitude of them. In a tick, Sir Simon, very excited. Sir Simon Mail, retired British Army General, on the show. The other big news you're waking up to is that Labour's plans to deal with the migrant crisis, because it's going to get even worse with Iran, is to give £40,000, my friends, £40,000 tax-free to men and women who have broken into this country illegally. Thank you for coming illegally. I hope you've enjoyed the hotel and the credit card and the phone, the free medical treatment and the new teeth. Please go back to where you came from, and here's 40 grand tax-free. Morning, Debs.
Good morning, Jazz. It's Debbie from Cornwall. Does the Labour Party not realise how absolutely disgustingly insulting it is to people like myself that have worked here? I'm 64, grandmother, still working full-time, still paying for, a huge amount of tax and national insurance every month. Do they not stop and think how unfair that is? I mean, it's abhorrent. It really is.
I'm sorry. That's dreadful. I was coughing. I was listening. Couldn't agree more. Love your thoughts on that. 0344 499 1000. As I said, delighted to be joined by our next guest, Sir Simon Mail, retired British Army General. Sir Simon, good morning.
Hi, Jeremy. Good morning.
Interestingly, I'm going to start, if I can, as a military man, by playing a clip of our now Defence Secretary, John Healey. I had, a Labour politician on yesterday saying that actually the issues in Cyprus weren't as bad as the media were making out. The big issue for us here, certainly for listeners, it isn't perhaps whether we should have been in the first wave or not. I myself think we should, others don't. It's the response to British citizens in Cyprus, and people are incredulous to the fact that we seem incapable. This is quite an interesting clip because it shows you that Healey was aware, but we've have as a government done nothing. This is John Healey.
The Iranians always said that they would do it widespread. They would target US military assets around the region and anybody else. So did it come as a surprise to you that Akrotiri was targeted?
So weeks before the conflict started, I'd moved extra jets, air defence systems.
But none of them can defend against ballistic missiles.
And defending the island. We always will defend, we'll fight in coordination with allies. And we had US destroyers also in the area. So.
But they can't defend against ballistic missiles. The Type 45 destroyer can, and it's not here yet. The French have got a frigate here, I think, as of last night.
Sure.
I know they're closer, but they got it to sea immediately.
Sir Simon Mail, retired British Army General, and your opinion is of massive importance to us this morning. What do you make of this government's response to what's going on in Iran right now, and that specifically in Cyprus?
Well, Jeremy, like you and like so many, I suspect, of your listeners, I'm a very patriotic British person. I hate to see our reputation being shredded by a government's failure to make natural provision for the defence of our assets, our military, our personnel, our citizens in the region, standing alongside our allies. I think it's the most appalling. It's the most appalling dereliction of duty. So much more could have been done. We've burnt our relationship with the Americans because I think, as I was listening to you earlier, Jeremy, that the Prime Minister has an incapacity to take genuinely strong decisions on behalf of the nation, like military preparedness, because he's so hemmed in by his own weakness and his cabinet.
I think there's two sides. I think you're absolutely right, Simon. I think on the one hand there's this mad ideology that, I mean, to actually say to a military or to even your people, let's sit around the table with people who have sponsored terrorism for as long as any of us can remember across the world. You know, I said every day, Hamas, Houthis, Hamas, ISIS, whatever. But it's also the fact that he's playing, and this is for me the real dereliction of duty, is that he's putting party politics ahead of national security. Now, as a military man, that must cut to the core completely.
It does. I mean, none of us are naive, Jeremy. As Clausewitz said, war is politics by other means. All military action is politics by other means. We get it. We understand some of the constraints. But this should not have caused any trouble for a government to make realistic preparedness for this. It's been clear for a very long time that Trump and the Israelis were going to hit Iran if Iran did not come to the table to negotiate in good faith, and they never have negotiated in good faith over the nuclear file. It was very clear at that stage when they struck Iran that Iran would strike out. This has been building for weeks, and it should be not beyond the wit. And I'm sure CDS and my predecessors, my successors rather, Chief of Joint Operations, have been saying we need to, alongside the Americans, set the battlefield. Now, you can set it defensively, that's fine. You can decide we're not going to take part in strikes, but you want to have options, and you want to then parlay those options into diplomatic strength. You want to demonstrate to allies in the Gulf both strength and reliability. And, you know, I fear, as speaking again as a patriotic Brit, 40 years service, that my fellow servicemen and women serving today will be really embarrassed by how the government and by virtue then the country have been humiliated by this lack of preparedness.
I agree, and I actually think
we're under-resourced. We've got terrific servicemen and women, as good as any around the world, and they have largely been let down by pusillanimity.
I completely agree. And interesting, if we strip back what Healey said, Sir Simon, he made the point that he's been aware of a build-up. He made the point, and you know, we were saying at the beginning of the week, everybody knew that fleet was building up, and the responsibility of a prime minister is to the safety of its country and its people. And you know, you make headlines out of this stuff, but to not have even prepared, you can see it in his body language. He's hamstrung as well by an ideology. A boat should have been there. I just want to talk to you about something that you talked about in terms of under-resourced. And I don't just lay this at Starmer's door. I lay this at a succession of governments who have disgustingly cut defence before anything else over the last 20 years, starting with Cameron and Osborne. This is an absolute fact. And somebody gave me a figure yesterday, and this is genuinely true, that more illegal immigrants have come into this country in the last 18 months since this new government came to power than we now have in our combined military. And I am unashamedly a Brit of 60 years of age, and that makes me feel shame. That just doesn't sit with me at all. Not at all.
No, well, I'm 70 tomorrow, Jeremy.
Oh, happy birthday for tomorrow.
I feel exactly the same. I'm horrified by our complete failure to support our national interest. And you're right, it long predates this government. The Royal Navy was absolute pride of the world. Its head high. It was just an absolute joy to see a grey funnel ship alongside with a white ensign flying. You know, the Royal Air Force, the Royal Marines, obviously my own service, the Navy, my own regiment, Queen's Dragoon Guards, are out in Poland at the moment. And they struggle on year after year, trying to hold up the flag of Britain. And then they look behind them, as I say, and find totally under-resourced this shocking prioritisation that successive governments have had towards migrants, the failure to guard the borders, the growth in welfare, so many young people on the dole and not working. And our young men and women, you know, you'll see them anywhere you go. Their tails are up. They want to do their absolutely best by the people of this country. And thank God we're His Majesty's Armed Forces, not the PM's Armed Forces.
Couldn't agree more. Here's the thing.
It's a place to be in, and Ben Habib was absolutely summing it up. This would not take much, but by goodness, it would take strong leadership to turn this situation around.
I mean, I'm with you.
Brilliant armed forces, but by goodness, we could do with some political support for what we do.
Absolutely,
and then
mate.
be used properly in support of British national interest.
Couldn't agree more. Can I ask you a question? Because one of Starmer's things yesterday was, you know, and I won't put the voice in, you know, Iran needs to lay down its weapons and stop its ships and submarines, and we need to sit round the negotiating table. You did 40 years. Can you negotiate with the Iranians, as Starmer suggests, Sir Simon?
No, this regime has been an absolute parasite in the region. So much of the trouble and volatility, violence in the region has been as a result of Iran and the Islamic Revolution of 1979. I've watched it the whole time of most of my career. We've tried to negotiate, we've tried to sanction, we've tried to put force, and love them or loathe them, many loathe them. Trump has seized the grasped this nettle at last. It's difficult to know where it goes. We all have, wars have a tendency to grow their own arms and legs. But this is the right time to be destroying any chance of Iran getting a nuclear weapon, any chance of Iran having a ballistic missile program. And we do need to hope now that enough people in the Middle East and around the world. There's a big game being played out here, of course, Jeremy, to do with China as well. Yeah. We need to get a bigger map to spot the importance of what's happening in the Gulf. And of course, headlines are dominated by explosions over Qatar or Dubai. But there's a real reshaping of the world going on. And for Britain, permanent member of the Security Council, lead member of NATO, terrific armed forces, albeit spavined at the moment and a bit weakened and under-resourced, we should have been up there, giving ourselves options to be at the table, making our case made diplomatically, etc. And I think everybody's just got a sense of disappointment, frankly, our allies and our friends in particular. We don't like feeling humiliated. I hate, don't care what the government is, I hate Britain being criticised and being jeered at. It really makes me feel quite physically sick.
I know you're only 70 tomorrow, but that was like listening to my old man who spent 40 years working in Royal Service and was in the Royal Navy. I completely and utterly agree. Sir Simon, a real pleasure to have you on the show this morning. Thank you, Sir Simon Mail, retired British Army General, venting, saying that our armed forces have been shredded and that our reputation on the international stage has become a laughing stock. And for all those people, this is the sort of person who fought for years to make this country great, and it is being shredded. Let's go straight to Westminster. Delighted to have him on, Shadow Secretary of State for Defence, James Cartledge. James, indoors. Better today. Did you hear what Sir Simon Mail, retired British Army General, was just saying about the state of our response in this Iranian crisis and the state of our defence systems in their entirety, sir?
Well, first of all, Jeremy, thank you for having me back on again. And I'm actually in Greater Manchester. But just to be clear, I'm very moved by what Sir Simon said. He's right. I was particularly struck on the protection of 3 Arleigh Burkes. They're the US air defence destroyers. But the implication of that, Jeremy, when you think about it, is until the Prime Minister U-turned and allowed the US to take off from our bases, for days, on the one hand, Prime Minister was denying the United States the use of our bases, but on the other hand, relying on them to defend ours, which I think is pretty shocking.
I think that's the point. And I want to, I said to Simon, it was a real pleasure. It was like listening to the old man. We can argue in time about the state of our defences, but, Healey gave it away, James, because he said, I've been aware for weeks of the build-up in the Gulf. Initially, the excuse was, we weren't told, we weren't involved, which perhaps tells you where America now ranks us. Any responsible Prime Minister and government, and I keep saying it all mornings, main duty is to protect their country and the British people. I can sit on this show and be incredulous to say that a landlocked country, Luxembourg, excuse me, sent a boat. I can sit on this show and listen to Starmer saying we should, excuse me, I'm going to have some water, negotiate, right? What I can't do is accept that ideology or, James, party politics is being put in front of national security and on international reputation, because that's what's happening.
But, Jeremy, you're totally right, and I just want to make two really, really important points here. I go back, so when I was the Defence Procurement Minister, it was that time, if you remember, when the Houthis, who, like Hezbollah, are another Iranian proxy, had been given ballistic missiles by Iran and had fired them at one of our Type 45s, the very type of air defence destroyer that we want to be out there in the Eastern Mediterranean. That was a very serious moment. I felt great responsibility in the department, and I looked around at what we could possibly do. We had a serious issue, which is they were firing these cheap drones, and our ship, HMS Darwin, had to use missile stock to defend against them. It wasn't the only option, but it potentially had to. So I spoke to my team, and I said, what have we got to defeat drones so we can keep the missile stocks for incoming ballistic missiles? And they said, well, we've got this laser called Dragonfire. And I did everything possible to accelerate that. I scrapped a whole load of red tape and testing, and it will be on Type 45s for next year to intercept drones. And it had that level of urgency. The second point, and I thought really moving from Sir Simon Mail, he said, what about the rise in welfare? What about the people who aren't contributing? And I don't know if you've seen, but this morning, Kemi has confirmed we would restore the two-child benefit cap and use it to fund the armed forces. And I think it's really important as a country, we've got to make that choice. We can't keep growing the welfare state while reducing the armed forces. No matter the politics of this, it must now be obvious that that's what we've got to do.
I know you've got to do, but I'm completely with you. I was going to stick to defence. Page 10 of the Mail, failed asylum families will be paid £40,000 tax-free to leave the UK within 7 days. You're saying, not you, this government is saying to the British people, right, thank you for working hard and paying your taxes. I'm sure we're impotent on the international stage, but if you came here illegally, we're going to give you 40 grand tax-free. The messaging is totally wrong, James, and you're right. We need to do something about our defences, not just now. We should have done it a long time ago. But for me, the front of the Mail gets it right. We can't put a warship to sea. We're ignored now by America. We've become a laughingstock, and we're governed by a man who thinks you can sit down with terrorists. Sum it up for me, James.
Well, yeah, I can totally understand why your viewers would be in despair. And, that asylum policy is truly bonkers. The idea that we would incentivise people to come in, knowing the worst case scenario is they get 40 grand tax-free. I mean, that is, at the outer edge of what is credible, isn't it? Let's put it politely like that. And I think people watching who work hard will just be truly astonished. I just want to say on the military, because I do accept, we all thought after the fall of the Berlin Wall we had peace, and successive governments cut spending. Let's just be honest about that, right? Yeah. But I would say this. One thing I'm very, very proud of, we were the only country that stood by Ukraine when it was invaded. But here's a key lesson from that. We didn't wait for Putin to invade before we gave weapons to Ukraine.
Absolutely.
That would have been the perfect way to comply with international law. What we had Boris Johnson, Ben Wallace had the guts to send weapons to Ukraine before the invasion, help them stop that column of tanks heading to Kyiv. And if they got there, we would. If you think now is bad, if they got to Kyiv, we'd be looking at 1939, and I don't say that lightly. So look, there are things we can do. We have led before. We just need to see serious leadership from the top, from number 10.
James, I know you're busy. We'll let you go. Thank you so much indeed. James Cartridge, the Shadow Secretary of State for Defence. Ahead of that, Sir Simon Mail. Passionate words about the state of not only our armed forces, but about how we are looked at on the international stage. 80 minutes to 8. We're live across the UK. It's Talk Breakfast. Morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Jeremy. It's Sarah from Croydon. I don't even have the energy to be angry today. I shed a little tear because everything's broken. I'm self-employed. I work very hard 7 days a week. I received no government support through COVID, but I kept going and I work hard. I don't earn £40,000 a year. I don't, and I'm okay with that. I have a really successful business, but because of decisions that consecutive governments have made, I'm financially worse off than I've ever been in my life. But I'm okay. I'm my own boss and I'm doing my own thing, but every decision they are making is destroying me and I'm fed up with it and I can't keep watching it on the news. This country, we are losing it and it breaks my heart. But I'll keep watching Talk because I know there are people out there that feel the same as me, and we will keep up the fight. Thanks, Jeremy.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 14 minutes to 8. We're live across the United Kingdom. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. You're waking up on Friday the 6th of March to the fact, well, as the Daily Mail puts it, we can't put a warship to sea. Trump's frozen the PM out, and Britain is frankly a laughingstock. Luxembourg is landlocked. They've sent a boat. We can't, but don't worry. Old Starmer thinks that we should sit down and negotiate with brutal, tyrannical murderers. That's the way forward. And then, of course, the other news story that's getting you as well is Labour are planning to... Well, they finally come up with their plan. We're going to deal with failed asylum seekers. I know exactly how we're going to get rid of them. We're going to give them, ladies and gentlemen, if you're waking up, this isn't... look. Please, thank you for breaking in. Thank you for having everything. It's time to go now. There's 40 grand tax-free. Why do we work? Why do we pay tax? Darren, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. I've just pulled £2 grand out of my workplace pension to buy a car, and they took £609 tax. I only get up at 6 o'clock every morning to go to work, so it doesn't matter. I'll pay for these people to go home. It's all right. I don't mind.
No, honestly, I completely... This has got everybody going. Sean in Leicester, 40 grand to go home for failed asylum seekers. Didn't the Epping Forest child sex assaulter, didn't he receive 500 quid to go home? And wasn't that reported to be around 14 months' worth of average pay? So there's a lesson. Simon, you're right. Break into the United Kingdom, get deported with 40 grand, you'll live like a king. Alison's in Richmond. 40 grand is like winning the lottery for people from most of the countries these illegals hail from. I can't believe anyone would be stupid enough even to suggest paying that, let alone actually agreeing to it. I can. They're called the Labour government. Pam, morning, Jez. My husband and I have worked all our lives and have never had a benefit from this government or any other apart from family allowance. We are now pensioners and we do not receive anything nearly like 40 grand a year. The illegal immigrants should be grateful they're getting a free trip home. All this will do, says Pam, is encourage more to come. Morning, Jez. Give me 10 grand and I'll leave the bleeding country. I don't want 40. That could set me for life in a country where property is cheap. This idea, yet another, will be exploited to the absolute hilt. And just quickly, Jackie in Glasgow, our leader, Starmer, is he? The weakest PM ever. It destroys me that I voted Labour. What a mistake I made. You voted for him? He's made our country spineless, weak, vulnerable and a laughing stock all over the world. My God, I never liked Maggie Thatcher and her policies, but at least she had the balls that Starmer didn't. That is Jackie in Glasgow, who voted for Keir Starmer, saying she is beyond embarrassment. And Bucky, I love this. Who's called Bucky in Woburn? Love it, posh. Morning, JK, great show. Where can I go on holiday for 6 months in a 4-star hotel, get paid 40 grand to go home? Can you let me know? Because I'm a pensioner on 12 grand and I'm skint. 12 minutes to 8 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. Still to come, by the way, some incredible guests this morning. Ben Wallace, former Commander-in-Chief, former Defence Secretary on this show. Also, the former Commander-in-Chief of UK Land Forces, General Sir Nick Parker. Your calls and your texts, which are going to change tack. This was a story that dominated for weeks and weeks. I'm not saying it's gone quiet, but on the back of 50,000 missing Jeffrey Epstein files to be released later today, we're wondering what more news will come out. We're delighted to say a very good morning to the author of Entitled, The Rise and Fall of the House of York, Andrew Loney. It's been a week. I've got Loney, well, I don't know what you call it. I've missed you, man. How are you?
I'm very well. I've missed you too.
Oh, bless your heart. I just want to start differently. I know we'll talk about Princess Beatrice and Eugenie. Andrew, who quite rightly is receiving everything that he's had coming his way, and I have completely adhered to everything you've said, is stuck on this farm, wood farm up in Sandringham. I hear he's not even allowed to go out the front door to go horse riding. We talked the other day about people believe that there is a chance that he should or could be on suicide watch. What does he do all day, man? What's he doing, Andrew?
Well, I mean, what he did before, really, which is to basically mooch around all morning in his dressing gown and watch films. He used to go out riding. He can't now play golf, but he watches videos. He's always been a bit of a couch potato, and he's just doing exactly the same. I mean, he's talking to his lawyers. I think he's still hopeful that he can do business activities, but he's just leads a very quiet life. I think most of his friends have now abandoned him, so it's a pretty isolated world.
And what about Fergie? Any news on where she is? I heard wellness clinic. I mean, with what's going on in the Middle East, I was thinking the other day, because most people would say that both of them might end up going to the Middle East. That's certainly not going to happen with what's going on. What do we know about her at the moment, my friend?
Well, we don't. I mean, she's disappeared. I think she may be staying with friends, but you're absolutely right. She's been in various wellness clinics. There were sightings possibly in Scotland and Ireland, and certainly she was in Switzerland for a while. I just don't know. I mean, she was in the Middle East for a few weeks when her daughter was there. I think she's still trying to rustle up some sort of return, people to pay for her to come back into public life.
Is she that deluded, Andrew? Is she that deluded she thinks she can come back into public life?
Well, she describes herself as a fighter, and she's done it before, so I wouldn't put anything past her.
I think that somehow personally think this is different. Let's bring it on to the kids. Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. I made a real mistake with you weeks ago when I said, what sort of mother takes young girls to meet Epstein, the convicted paedophile? And you said, no, Jez, they were 18 and 20. More and more is being said about these girls. The press are starting to follow them. They, though, very keen to hold on to their royal status amid Andrew's arrest. But I read the other day that the Waleses, right, want nothing to do with the girls, nothing to do with the Yorks as well, and have already off the record made it known that if either of them went anywhere near Royal Ascot, that the future King and Queen, they're not playing ball at all.
Yeah, I think the Ascot decision is very interesting because it's a very public sort of put down of them. I mean, they could have quietly said, look, we prefer you not to be there. So the royal family are distancing themselves, and I think they're doing that because they're aware or worried that new damaging material might emerge about the daughters. I've certainly got some damaging material which I'm going to put in my paperback, so that's a very wise decision. The girls are, I think the press are getting wise to this, the girls are very much involved in the whole family business.
Sorry, mate. You're going to tell me to do one. Damaging about the girls in my paperback. Can you give me something, just a snippet?
Yeah, well, I mean, they've been, continuing to monetize their royal status in the Middle East. I mean, Princess Beatrice is always Her Royal Highness Princess Beatrice rather than Mrs. Mosey. And I think some of those associations in the Middle East will be coming out. Also, the fact that money has been fenced through, still, I think, is being fenced through their accounts. We saw that with the Salman Turk case in the High Court in 2022. So, yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, they were told, you know, can we have an audit of your finances by William? And they refused to do it because clearly there's some very embarrassing things that they're continuing to do.
Do you say, without going into detail, that you can't? That's an interesting point you made about William. He wanted an audit to see if they were part of this web of gratuity, money, whatever, that their parents unashamedly chased. Because we know that Fergie and Andrew were all about money. And then you add in the sorts of people like Epstein. You're saying, as much as you can, that these girls have made money from their royal status and from their connections that could put them in the dock over this as well, right?
Well, not necessarily put them in the dock, but certainly be very embarrassing. I mean, they you know, one of the reasons they swan around the Middle East the whole time is because that's one area where they can monetize their royal position. And Andrew has always been very keen for them to be working royals, to have police protection when they didn't need it. I think the deal to leave Royal Lodge was that they would be protected by the royal family. But I think William is now kind of slightly more dominant in this whole debate, and he's saying, no, this is more reputational damage. We need to cut loose. So I don't see them. I mean, I think the wise thing for them would be to renounce their titles and just quietly go under a stone. But I don't think they're going to do that.
I mean, that's the problem. If what you say about them is true, and let's be perfectly honest to anybody, everything you've said about this whole York's debacle has been absolutely spot on, then maybe that is to happen. They're both married. They've both got kids. Just going back to William, you said he's becoming the dominant force. Is he calling the shots over the king, do you think, on this because he's got an eye on the future, Andrew?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's no love lost between the Walesers and the Yorks in any case. I mean, that goes way back to his youth. But I think you can see the reputational damage. I mean, it's extraordinary that the royal family always do too little, too late. I mean, they haven't got ahead of this story. And William, I think, wants to because he's got the guy who's got to pick up the pieces.
Well, he's the only one, is he not, to be fair, that can't be accused of being complicit in this. So much has been written about the king, and I've heard and read all the stuff, and I'm a royalist and you're a royalist, but the fact of the matter is you don't lend somebody or know of somebody being lent 12 million unless you've asked a couple of questions. And he is front and centre about how much did he know and how much, I'm afraid, did the king cover up for his brother. William's not in the same boat, is he, Andrew? And for me, more so than ever, William and Kate, in my mind, are the only way the monarchy survives in its present form.
Yes, no, I agree. I mean, he does have clean hands, and the problem is the king is compromised. I mean, he was well aware of all the problems with Andrew going back years. I mean, he would have been aware just from the press, quite apart from any private briefings. And rather than just even turn their back on it, they've actually actively tried to suppress this story. And Private Eye and others are beginning to write about that. So yes, the king is in a very difficult position, and you know, the cleanest solution would be to have William take the throne. I think the feeling is that Charles needs to sop up more of the damage. He's the lightning conductor, and maybe his health concerns will kind of supersede this. But
I completely agree with that. We talked about this a few weeks ago. I think he'll care about the crown enough to take one on the chin, and I think he can use the cancer diagnosis and the ongoing treatment as the reason, because I think William and Kate would be a fresh broom. This story doesn't go away, does it, Andrew?
No, it doesn't. You know, and it'll be interesting to see what new disclosures emerge with more releases.
Fantastic, my friend. Great to catch up. Don't forget, a new paperback on the way. Andrew Loney, author of entitled The Rise and Fall of the Yorks. Thank you very much indeed. Listen, it's almost 8, news on the way, and so much to come, including, ladies and gentlemen, Zia Youssef from Reform next on Talk.
breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talking...
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes, is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back or welcome along. This is Talk. It's the home of common sense. It's the home of your views on the news of the day. Please do get involved. We're here until 10:0344 499 1000. You can make a call. You can leave a voice note. You can text us on 87222. Start your message of the word Talk. Christian's just nailed it for Friday the 6th of March. We're on our asses, as the Mail puts it. We can't put a warship to sea. HMS dragging your feet. Still stuck at Portsmouth. And rest assured, my friends, this morning, Luxembourg, that's a landlocked country, that's got a frigate to Cyprus to support British people, but we are hamstrung. Trump's not speaking to the Prime Minister, Britain's the laughingstock, but don't worry, my friends. Let's cut the music and feel confident, because the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom addressed the nation yesterday, and his answer to dealing with terrorists, mad mullahs who sponsor terrorism and kill people on the streets of countries the length and breadth of the world. This is his answer, ladies and gentlemen.
Iran can end this now. They should refrain from further strikes, give up their weapons programs, and cease the appalling violence and repression against the Iranian people. This is the route to de-escalation and back to the negotiating table.
Absolutely. You can, of course, negotiate with brutal, tyrannical murderers who absolutely want to sit down and have a chat. Yesterday, a deranged MP from the Labour Party told me on this show that actually Cyprus was fine. It was all about... The media are hyping it up. There's no problems in. So they sent Defence Secretary John Healey, who let slip that they were aware that there had been issues. But, you know, it's all about doing the right thing. Cue John Healey.
The Iranians always said that they would do it widespread. They would target US military assets around the region and anybody else. So did it come as a surprise to you that Akrotiri was targeted?
So weeks before the conflict started, I'd moved extra jets, air defence systems.
But none of them can defend against ballistic missiles.
And defending the island. We always will defend, we will fight in coordination with allies. And we had US destroyers also in the area. So,
But they can't defend against ballistic missiles. The Type 45 destroyer can, and it's not here yet. You know, the French have got a frigate here, I think, as of last night.
Sure.
I know they're closer, but they got it to sea immediately.
Whatever your politics, whatever your view of what's going on, I mean, most people would say that we have become impotent on the international stage. Trump, just very quickly. Monday he said he was disappointed. Tuesday he said the special relationship's on its backside. Wednesday he said Starmer's no Churchill. Thursday he says he's a loser. And now he says he should have helped him. We're going to go to Zia Youssef in just a tick. We've got some breaking news on Talk Breakfast. Breaking news here. You're going to push that? No, that's not happening. Breaking news. 4 people have just been arrested as part of a counter-terrorism policing investigation into suspected National Security Act offences. Detectives leading the investigation arrested the men, 1 Iranian and 3 dual British-Iranian nationals shortly after 1 a.m. It wasn't Starmer, just so you're aware, National Security. 4 people been arrested overnight as part of a counter-terrorism policing investigation into suspected National Security Act offences, which, of course, adds fuel to the fire of the people that say, how many sleeper cells are there in the United Kingdom looking for retribution? As I promised, we're going live to Reform UK's Shadow Home Secretary. Delighted to have him on this morning. Zia Youssef, how are you, my friend?
I'm very well. How are you?
Well, embarrassed to be British, I'm afraid, this morning would be a summing up. Luxembourg, a landlocked country here, can get a frigate to Cyprus, but our impotent government can't get HMS dragging its feet out of Portsmouth. Your response to that?
Well, it's a huge embarrassment for our country that His Majesty's Royal Navy is clearly incapable of projecting power on any form of sensible time frame. It's a further embarrassment that RAF base in Cyprus has basically been left undefended from ballistic missiles, certainly from British hardware. We've relied on actually Cypriot anti-aircraft tools to defend it. And I want to make the point that British sovereign territory has been attacked. British sovereign territory has been attacked, so that's not speculation or subjective. It has happened. Starmer took days to have any form of proper response because, by all accounts, it sounds like Ed Miliband is actually already running the country, which should terrify all of us. But again, as you quite rightly said, regardless of your politics, which political party you support, the idea of His Majesty's Royal Navy being unable to put a destroyer in the water on any sensible time frame is a travesty. And I'll tell you this too, if you speak to people who have been in the military, who are very close to our armed forces, they will, none of them are surprised by this. The military has been catastrophically hollowed out by extraordinary underinvestment for decades, really. It really started under the Tories. And what of the hundreds of billions of pounds of British taxpayers' money that has been spent on foreign aid? Are we feeling powerful right now? All of that, quote, soft power that we have, we're a laughing stock. And if only that money could have been spent, for example, on defence, we wouldn't be in this position.
I completely agree. I had Sir Simon Mail, retired British Army General, on Zia earlier. And as a patriot, as he said, he said, I'm embarrassed. I gave 40 years of my life. And he said, you're right to say this isn't just Starmer. There's so much about Starmer I want to talk to you about. This goes back 20 years. It's an absolute disgrace what's happened in our mind, in anybody's mind, what's happened to our defences. And you gave this, I think it was you, and I quote it all the time. Under Keir Starmer, more illegal migrants have broken into this country in 18 months than we now have in our combined Air Force, Naval and Armed Forces. That is without any shadow of a doubt, Zia. That is embarrassing, humbling. They've shredded the armed forces and it's come back to bite them, hasn't it?
Well, it's humbling. It's also terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, almost 200,000 people have turned up on our beaches uninvited, basically broken into the country illegally over the last 8 years. That's more people than stormed the beaches of Normandy on D-Day. The vast majority of those are men. The majority of those are of fighting age, and they are coming from countries like Iran, Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq. So this is a huge, huge problem. And look, if you really want to know why our Navy is incapable of getting it destroyed in the war on any sensible time frame, I'll tell you why. It's because this country currently spends almost 5 times more on welfare than it does on defence. For example, it's because the British taxpayers spent north of £200 billion over the last couple of decades in real terms, in terms of foreign aid, are spending money on things like contraceptive programs in Pakistan or Road to Nowhere in Latin America, or education programs which involve vending machines in sub-Saharan Africa. We've got to put the British people first. And look, should Britain at some point, would it be nice to have a foreign aid program and feel good about ourselves? Sure. Can we afford to do that when so many people are struggling? There's always no money left, right? That's what we're always told. I mean, this will also really be even more upsetting for people, because yesterday, maybe we're going to come on to this, but probably one of the most extraordinary announcements from any Home Secretary I've seen in my lifetime. Labour announcing they're now going to start offering £40,000 effectively rewards for breaking into Britain.
Can I hold this up? Because Zia, you jumped it, but I'm absolutely happy. Well, I'm not happy. I've never seen a response to it. Ladies and gentlemen, this government, irrespective of what you make of whether we should have been in those first attacks or whether Keir Starmer is stupid enough to think that you can negotiate with people who blow people up, yesterday, even by their standards, Labour hit an all-time low. They have decided that the way to deal with thousands of people coming to this country illegally is to say, thank you for coming for 18 months. I hope you've enjoyed the hotel and the mobile phone and the free dental care. I know you've broken the law, but we're humanitarians and we care. So there is £40,000 of tax-free British taxpayers' money to make you go home. I don't have words to describe how stupid, how unfair, that's the word, and how utterly immoral that is as a policy.
Exactly. What a disgraceful message to send hard-working British taxpayers. What Labour are saying they're going to do is give £40,000, again, tax-free, to illegal migrants, effectively as a reward for breaking into our country. Imagine, just for people listening to this program right now, consider how hard and how long you would have to work to make that money after tax, £40,000. It's a huge, huge amount of money. And what makes it even more spectacularly stupid is that the border is still not secure. Thousands of people have turned up on our beaches illegally already this year. And so all that means is, to the degree they are going to get anyone to accept this £40,000, and they may well do because it's such a large amount of money, they're going to come straight back. And all Shabana Mahmood, Labour's Home Secretary, has done here is do a huge favour for the people smugglers. If people smuggling gangs were listed companies, their shares would be up 200% yesterday because their profit margins are going to go through the roof. They'll be the only ones who are rubbing their hands with glee. But I'll tell you who won't be rubbing their hands with glee is the long-suffering British taxpayer. Look, there's only one way to deal with this problem, and the reason why you get ever more fantastical, insane ideas coming out of the political classes, because none of them have the courage and the guts and the wherewithal to actually do what's necessary. We need to leave the ECHR, disapply every other international treaty that would otherwise be used to frustrate deportations. We need to launch a mass deportation program, create a dedicated agency with a single mission to track down, detain and deport not just the people who just arrived on a boat, but every single illegal migrant that is already in the country. That is the way you solve this problem. And by the way, Shabana Mahmood has made crystal clear she's not going to do a single one of those things. Instead, she's going to start spraying taxpayer money with even more extraordinary abandon at people who break our laws.
Can I actually justify completely what you said, Zia? Couldn't agree more. I had a voice note in the first hour of the programme this morning. Break your heart. This absolutely nails what millions of people in this country feel about the ludicrous let's give failed asylum seekers 40 grand to leave. Morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Jeremy. It's Sarah from Croydon. I don't even have the energy to be angry today. I shed a little tear because everything's broken. I'm self-employed. I work very hard 7 days a week. I received no government support through COVID, but I kept going and I work hard. I don't earn £40,000 a year. I don't, and I'm okay with that. I have a really successful business, but because of decisions that consecutive governments have made, I'm financially worse off than I've ever been in my life. But I'm okay. I'm my own boss and I'm doing my own thing, but every decision they are making is destroying me. And I'm fed up with it, and I can't keep watching it on the news. This country, we are losing it, and it breaks my heart. But I'll keep watching Talk because I know there are people out there that feel the same as me, and we will keep up the fight. Thanks, Jeremy.
That's the point of why we do this, why I do this, and why you do what you do, Zia. Sarah works all her life, and genuinely you can hear the emotion. She's saying to her government, how unfair is it that I play by the rules, I do everything right, and my life is worse than somebody who breaks into our country illegally?
Well, I think millions in this country would sympathise with what Sarah's just said. I completely agree with that. And yeah, that's a big reason why I'm in politics. Look, it's time we had a political leader and a political party in power in this country who will make decisions through the lens of what's in the interest of the British people. That doesn't mean life changes overnight for everybody. It doesn't mean that it's all of a sudden sun and roses, but it will mean that the extraordinary unfairness that British people have been subjected to, frankly, for decades, again, it started under the Tories, continued under Labour, will be, that period and that era will come to an end. And, you know, I talked about this in my speech at the beginning of last week, where I talked about all of the injustices that are now really baked into our justice system as a result of things like Article 8 of the ECHR, where literally brutal, savage foreign national murderers, their right to a family life, and that's a quote, is put above the rights of victims of the families of victims of murder, for example, in this country, at the hands of those same people. And those people are able to stay in our country. Already, British taxpayers are spending north of £7 billion a year just on accommodation and a small part of Border Force's budget alone on the illegal migration problem. That's before you talk about the NHS and any number of other huge expenditure items for the state where the government just simply hides the data. And this is what's so spectacularly unfair about it. How many times are British people told there's no money left? You know, Sarah owns a business. She runs a business. It's successful. And the decisions that Labour government has made, and by the way, the Tory government have made to make her life endlessly more difficult. You're going to submit your tax returns 4 times a year now. We're going to make you do that. We're going to increase the cost of employing people through the national insurance contributions by 2%. Oh, we're going to change the goalposts on inheritance tax. By the way, don't even think about being a farmer because we're going to persecute you in every possible way we can. We're going to have the most insane energy policy so that your energy bills are the most expensive in the developed world, not by a little bit, but by a country mile. And don't complain about it because we're diverting all that money to people whose first act upon coming into this country was to break our laws. And by the way, if they terrorize local populations, if they commit crime, in many cases, it improves the likelihood that they are granted asylum. I mean, I talked about people often, we've become so desensitized to this. There are cases where men have committed rapes on British women, and the judge has said, well, we can't now deport this man back to Afghanistan because the rapist might be in a spot of bother with the Taliban if we send him back. That is the absurdity of the current situation in this country. Now, I will say this too. Imagine we had a Prime Minister like Nigel Farage who will do the opposite of these things. To the degree there are zero-sum decisions to be made, they will always be made in favour of British citizens. We will put British people first. And I want to say it again. If you come to this country illegally under a Reform government, or if you're already here in the country illegally under a Reform government, you won't be wandering around the streets, you won't be getting free activities, you will be detained and you will be deported back to the country from which you came. That is the first but very important step to repairing the social contract that is broken in this country.
Sierra, I genuinely, hand on heart, couldn't put it any better. Just before you go, as the shadow Home Secretary under what you hope will be a Reform government, your response, please, to that breaking news I broke 15 minutes ago that 4 people have been arrested as part of a counter-terrorism policing investigation into suspected national security offences. The men arrested were 1 Iranian and 3 dual British-Iranian nationals shortly after 1 a.m. And the investigation, this is the scary thing, relates to suspected surveillance of locations and individuals linked to the Jewish community in the London area.
Well, I'm afraid I'm not surprised. I'm very pleased that our security services appear to have foiled a potential threat as a result of these arrests. Look, the IRGC, which is basically the the Iranian state. They're acting at the behest of the Iranian state. Britain stands almost alone in terms of respected countries in not prescribing it as a terrorist organization. America has prescribed it. Even the European Union has prescribed it. Britain, for some inexplicable reason, has not prescribed it. A reform government would prescribe it immediately, and we cannot understand why that hasn't happened. But is it any wonder that these things are happening? Look, Iranians are one of the top nationalities in terms of people who have made the journey to the UK, turned up in our country illegally. We don't know who these people are. Most of them are military-aged men. We've known for a long time now the Iranian regime is hostile to the interests of Britain, and MI5 themselves have briefed that they have foiled 20 attempted terrorist attacks by the IRGC. The Iranian regime is a clear and active and present threat to citizens of the United Kingdom, people listening to this show. And for some reason, Keir Starmer continues to take the view that we should not prescribe an organization that MI5 has said they are constantly having to thwart terrorist attacks from. It beggars belief, and it's just yet another example of the spectacular weakness of this Labour government.
Just finally, sorry, because this sort of broke last night, and I was going to... our Prime Minister is completely shunned now by Trump, frozen out. Nigel, we know, because he announced it last night, is off to have lunch or dinner at Mar-a-Lago. He's off to see Donald Trump. What can we expect from that meeting?
Well, you'll have to wait and see what Nigel wants to share. I mean, Nigel, one of the reasons why he's close friends with so many very important people is because he doesn't share things unless he feels it's appropriate, and both sides would be happy with it. I will say this, though, that, you know, the special relationship, if we can still call it that, between Britain and America, I can't remember it being at as low an ebb as this. And you have to ask, again, for what? I mean, when you read very well researched reports, well-sourced reports about what happened in that security cabinet meeting when Starmer basically decided to not allow the Americans to use our bases, which again, in hindsight, looks spectacularly stupid given our RF bases were attacked. It sounds like it was Ed Miliband making all of the decisions. Yep. And this is something that I think everyone needs to be aware of. Keir Starmer is not really the Prime Minister anymore. He's not the de facto Prime Minister. He's the Prime Minister in name and title only. Ed Miliband is the de facto Prime Minister. And it's simply a matter of time now before Starmer is replaced by his MPs. And therefore, that is a very dangerous position for this country to be in. Look, President Trump is going to make decisions in the interests of the American people. He's been crystal clear about that. He says, I'm going to put the American people first. It's about time we had a British Prime Minister who would do the same.
I couldn't agree more. Zia, honestly, I know how busy you are. We really, really appreciate the time this morning. Zia Youssef, great to have you on. Reform UK's Shadow Home Secretary. And just to go back to what he said at the very end there, Nigel Farage was last night at a meeting in London about the Chagos Islands and the way that the Brits have seemingly given away sovereign land and money we apparently haven't got. And he let it out that he was off to America today for dinner, I think, tonight with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Just leave you with this thought. What does it say that the Prime Minister, the elected Prime Minister of this country, won't speak to Donald Trump because he's so stuck with his ideology or worried by his own party, or rather Trump won't speak to him? And yet the leader of a party that's got 5 MPs is having dinner with the leader of the free world sometime this evening. The world's gone nuts. This is Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:26. We're live across the United Kingdom. I just want to get back to the news, but I'm slightly weak. I'm at the top of the tower of the news building on floor 17. Look, there's window cleaners outside if you're watching. And morning, not waving, don't give a damn. I thought it was an attack. Anyway, 03, can you get rid of that? It's a bit weird. 0344, they're looking at me. 03, he said, all right, yeah, all right. 0344 499 1000, text to 8722. You're waking up to the news that we are, well, pariahs on the international stage. We can't put a warship to sea. Trump's been frozen out but Trump's frozen out our Prime Minister. Britain is a laughing stock. But before we continue, with something very important to do, because it's 8:26, and Oliver, William, Robin, Carl won't go into school unless I say good morning. Da. Thanks, Rissy Roo. Have a great day. See you later. Let's get back to it. That breaking news is dominating all the news outlets in the last half an hour. Many people are concerned, genuinely concerned about the ramifications of sleeper cells in the United Kingdom and what this Iran war means for the security of the Jewish community and the British community on the streets of London. In the last half an hour, the police have confirmed that 4 men have been arrested on suspicion of aiding Iran's intelligence service by spying on locations and individuals linked to the Jewish community in London. The men arrested are 1 Iranian and 3 dual British-Iranian nationals shortly after 1 a.m. So much response to this. Your thoughts on that, on the war, on our standing, and also the appalling story today. Talk about madness. If you broke into our country, lived in a hotel, got a free phone, a credit card, nice teeth and the chance to see a doctor, unlike the rest of us taxpayers, Labour Party's idea of getting rid of you is to give you £40,000 tax-free. If you look at the migrant tracker, nearly 68,000 illegal migrants have come into this country since Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. 40 grand tax-free each. I ask only this, my friends. Why do we bother going to work? Morning, Andy.
Good morning, Jeremy. It's Andy here in Alicante. This 10 grand they're going to give to failed asylum seekers to make them go home without any fuss. Do you know how much that is? Well, it's about 6 years' salary for a Pakistani person. If it's a family of 4, that's effectively 24 years' salary they're going to hand over, making those people actually very rich. Doesn't sound right to me, does it to you?
Not at all. Let's bring on our next guest. Delighted to have a former Home Office Minister. I love this lady. I'm always in awe. Anne Widdecombe, a very good morning. Welcome to breakfast.
Good morning to you.
I'm trying really hard, Anne Widdecombe. You're a woman. I know. She's shaking her head. I don't know whether I've woken up this week and ended up in a different country. Let's do it differently. Let's start with Labour Party and their idea to deal with getting rid of illegal migrants. Is Anne Widdecombe to give them £40,000 tax-free to leave the UK within 7 days. What does that say to the British taxpayer?
Well, one of the worst things about it is, of course, that it's family and children are being counted. So if you've got 2 adults, 2 kids, you get your 40,000. Now, that actually acts as an incentive to bring children over on those boats, which is an appalling prospect. And that, to my mind, I mean, apart from the lunacy, the absolute lunacy of handing a small fortune to somebody in order that they will go home when they've no right to be here in the first place. But in addition to that lunacy, I'm worried about the impact on kids.
But absolutely agree. But it's going to create a conveyor belt. I mean, if you can, in these countries, £40,000. I just, one word that always comes back to me, Anne, is fairness. And one of the things that Zia Youssef was just talking about, and that I hear repeatedly in the calls and the texts that we get, is how people feel like if you live your life correctly and play the game as it's supposed to play, suddenly in this country, you're persona bleeding non grata.
Yeah, it is absolutely true. I mean, the more you abide by the rules, the more you lose out, as far as I can see. And, we reward people for quite deliberately not working. We're now about to reward people with a huge sum of money, particularly in their terms. who've come into this country unlawfully. And it is the case that if you try to do the right thing, and you try to live by the law and by the ordinary social rules, you're actually at a disadvantage. And that's a topsy-turvy world, and that is what Britain is now becoming.
Can you ever imagine when you got into politics, right, that you would be saying that it's a disadvantage for a Brit to live within the confines of the law, to go to work, save, pay tax, bring up their family? It's almost derangement. Let's bring it, Anne, away from that. I mean, that's absurd and delusional by anybody's standards. Let's talk about... I mean, I thought the Daily Mail nailed it this morning. They said we can't put a warship to sea. Trump's frozen the Prime Minister out. Britain's a laughingstock. And for people who are just tuning in, let's be honest. HMS... I can't do this with a straight face. HMS Dragging Your Feet is still stuck in Portsmouth, our only boat. That can't get out. Luxembourg, which is landlocked, to centre frigate. And Keir Starmer, and I want to play this again, Sammy, because Anne, I might have heard it, but I think people tune in and out all morning. When the world is on a precipice, this is our Prime Minister's real response to Iran and what's going on. Have a listen to this, peeps.
Iran can end this now. They should refrain from further strikes, give up their weapons programs, and cease the appalling violence and repression against the Iranian people. This is the route to de-escalation and back to the negotiating table.
And you say it how it is. How in the name of sweet Jesus are you supposed to sit round a table and say to somebody who has sponsored terrorism and murdered people the length and breadth of this world, please give me your weapons, human rights law, let's all have a chat? It is the most pathetic, failed leadership I think in my 60 years I've ever witnessed, honestly, by a mile.
Well, it certainly is. And the logic of saying to a regime that has quite deliberately practiced atrocities and practiced oppression and practiced repression, to say to them, oh, we know that's what you're defending at the moment, but just give it up, and everything's going to be wonderful. I mean, it's just, it is complete cloud cuckoo land, but I don't understand how he can say it with a straight face. And coming to the point about our ships, I mean, what really worries me is just the absence of common sense, because, of course, the Dragon's not the only ship in the world, but our other warships appear all to be in dock as well at the same time. Now, how can you arrive at a situation, forget that war has now broken out, supposing it hadn't, the whole idea of defence is you're preparing for war. How can you arrive at a situation when all your ships, or at least the ones that matter, apart from one, the Duncan, how can you arrive at a situation where all the ones that matter are in dock at the same time?
Well, I had your old colleague Ian Duncan Smith on this show on Wednesday, and he stands by and said, and I quote, that the reason that the fleet is in dock is money, because this government scrambling to pay extra money in welfare benefits and crazy ideas like the 40 grand to illegal migrants, knows full well that if your fleet and the ships that you've got are in port and not on operational use or manoeuvres, that saves money. And if that's true, Anne Widdecombe, that is beyond damning. I honestly, it's damn. Is that right?
It's betrayal. That is the only word you can use. It is the government's solemn duty. Its first duty is to save its citizens from harm, and that means defending the country adequately, making sure you're always ready and in readiness for any attack. And it is sheer betrayal to say, well, in order to save money, we'll keep all the ships in dock and we won't have them deployed. And as you rightly say, the money is being spent on a whole lot of things that most of us would say it shouldn't be spent on. But that aside, it is the betrayal of the nation not to have its fleet ready for action at the drop of a hat.
Couldn't agree more. Final question. Your response to that breaking news, Anne. You used to work in the Home Office. 4 men have been arrested overnight on suspicion of aiding Iran's intelligence service by spying on locations and individuals linked to the Jewish community in London. The men arrested are an Iranian nationality and 3 dual British-Iranian nationals shortly after 1 a.m. One of the biggest concerns for listeners and viewers and people across the country is, you know, the terrifying feeling that there could be sleeper cells in the UK. What would you say to that story, Anne Widdecombe?
Well, first of all, congratulations to the security agencies for busting this one. But secondly, you know, the Prime Minister hasn't helped. He hasn't prescribed the Iranian terrorist organisation. He hasn't taken a tough line on terrorism. He talks it, of course, all the time. But when it actually comes to action, anti-Semitism, terrorism, activities that are absolutely against British interests are being promoted. And yes, this won't be the only one. Of course, you're right. Of course, this isn't the only one. There will be other cells.
Great to have you on. Thank you, as ever, for taking the time. 8:37, that was Anne Widdecombe. I just want to go to the break and we'll take Trev on a voice note in a tick. Michael Anstey, I think this sort of sums up, and for people who watch this and go, well, come on, Jez, it's not that bad. Well, it is. Sorry, it's not great. He says, I love talk and I tune in every day, but honestly, Jez, by lunchtime, I'm done. I'm mentally drained. Story after story is both mind-boggling and heartbreaking. Starmer and this appalling government are raping this country in each and every way. I wouldn't use that word, but there you go. I'm a 68-year-old Englishman and I have a family history dating back to the 1700s. My late father served in the military in World War II, and I'm telling you now, he would have tears in his eyes if he was alive today. Trev, good morning.
So 40k to leave. Well, I'll tell you what, why don't they pay all of us Brits 20k and we'll all bugger off, because they clearly don't want us here and it'll be a lot cheaper for them.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. 20 to 9. We're live across the UK. We're lining up today. Alex Phillips in for Julia Hartley-Brewer from 10. Ian Collins, the Housewife's Choice, well, Mrs. Kyle's Choice, is on from 1 o'clock. And Kevin O'Sullivan sounding great on Drive Time from 4 o'clock, bringing the news and getting your views as it happens. You're waking up to the Daily Mail's front page, which basically says we're buggered. I mean, I can't describe it in any other way. We can't send a warship to Cyprus to defend our own people because, I don't know, apparently Amazon haven't been around with the engine parts yet. Trump doesn't speak to the Prime Minister, although Nigel Farage overnight let slip that he's off to Mar-a-Lago today and will dine with the leader of the free world tonight. That'll be interesting. Britain, a bit of a laughingstock earlier. We spoke to Sir Simon Mail, ex-British Army General, who said, as a patriot, I am beyond mortified. Starmer, though, is towing the international line. Let's sit down at a table and have a chat with people who like to launch terror attacks and kill people on streets all over the world. There's so much to this story, and it's backed up by this appalling domestic policy that Labour announced yesterday via Shabana Mahmood, which basically said we know finally how to stop the boats. The 68,000 people that have come in. We're not going to stop them coming in, but we're going to give them £40,000 tax-free to leave. I don't know what message that sends. In the midst of doing this show about 10 minutes ago, I looked left. I'm on the 17th floor of the News building in London, and there were 2 window cleaners on a gantry. Many of you implied that I thought they might be Iranian spies. I don't know. No, don't be ridiculous. They didn't know. Anyway, but there is that breaking news, which is really important and people responding to as well, that 4 men have been arrested on the suspicion of aiding Iran's intelligence services by spying on locations and individuals linked to the Jewish community in London. 4 men arrested overnight. We will keep you updated with that story as it happens. Delighted to welcome our next guest. Nigel Farage made a big thing about Labour defections a week or so ago, and yesterday it was confirmed that Sir Robin Wales, the longest-serving Labour mayor, he was, of course, the former mayor of Newham, a major part of London, has defected to Reform, and he's on this show this morning in an exclusive to explain why. Sir Robin, good morning. How are you?
I'm good, Jeremy. Thank you very much. But just to say, I don't think I defected from Labour. I think Labour defected from us. It's not the Labour Party. Can you imagine previous Labour governments having one ship available to go elsewhere? I mean, that's just in a bloody flotilla. You just think, yeah, amazing. It's like shooting fish in a barrel for you, isn't it?
I must say, in all of my time of doing this, Robin, for 30 years, there have been moments this week when my mouth has been quite literally on the floor. And I will add the caveat, and I said this earlier, and I've said it all week. There will be people who absolutely will say, and have a right to say so, that we shouldn't have been in the initial wave of attacks. But for me, the very premise of being the leader of this country, being the leader of a government in this country, is twofold. You protect the country and you protect the people. And when I sit here and I hear that the French and Luxembourg are ahead of us, when I sit and hear a Prime Minister who you were part of his party say, oh, let's sit down with a bunch of killers and sit round a negotiating table, just put into words for the people listening. You say that Labour Party left you. Do you feel betrayed? Have you been amazed? Do you feel duped? What do you feel that led you to join Reform?
Listen, we wrote a letter explaining our reasons for leaving. We didn't know about the complete incapacity of the army, and we didn't know that when America launched...
Sorry, Sir Robin, can you do me a favour? The sound's awful. Can you come nearer to the mic? I thought it was me.
Yes, I can. Is that better?
Yes.
Is that better?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Just sorry, mate. I know it's difficult, but it was a little bit...
No, it's technical. Listen, I know all about policy, but I know nothing about technical issues. So
Neither do I, pal. I'm not lying. Why did you join
Look, it's an astonishing government. We didn't expect much, but we've not been disappointed. Even our expectations of disappointing, they weren't high. We left because we think in every possible way this government is not doing what former Labour governments would do. One thing you've got to say about Labour governments in the past, they were very loyal. They were very patriotic. They're not anymore. They're really not. So for us, it's things like free speech. It's a refusal to face up to facts. It's a budget deficit that our kids will have to pay for in the future. We're just... And actually £10,000 to each of the towns, it's not even the money. It's the morality of it. You're rewarding bad behaviour. When did we stop thinking about more morality in politics? Because I think that's kind of important.
Pretty massive thing, though, for a Labour politician, a supporter of the Labour ideology. And I wanted to get in this with you because I know that the people at Reform, I think people would know that. But Labour was always the working man and woman's party, and this show sort of started as Alarm Clock Brits. And I spend huge amounts of time in Newcastle. I've got great friends up there. I don't know many working people in Newcastle. In fact, I don't know any who would say that the Labour Party is for them anymore. They say reform speaks to them on the level that they want.
The fact is, more working class people and then members of Reform are voting for Reform than for any other party. Just to tell you, when we were in Newham, we had 10 years where we didn't increase council tax because we thought council tax was regressive tax. It hurts working people. We didn't make any cuts. We were the most popular council in the country with 80% people in the most diverse borough in the world, actually, for the size. 80% satisfaction because we did the things that we thought people wanted. We helped people into work, 40,000 people, biggest jobs brokerage in the country, first through free school meals, all sorts of things like that, which was about supporting working people. Taught every kid to play a musical instrument, kids that would have no chance otherwise because they're not middle class. That was supporting the working class. That's why I joined the Labour Party, is to support the working class. The Labour Party has left the working class. As I said, I haven't defected from the values I've got. I'm a social democrat, but I'm also, I have to say, somebody who believes in free speech and enlightenment values, and I'm tired of watching woke's an easy, it's just an easy label. But there's the problem there. And actually, John Curtis, as I've always said, there's two things. People still vote left-right, but they also vote on illiberal or liberal social values. And he said woke to make it easy. That's what we're against. We've really got an issue with that. I tell you, it's beyond belief we attack a terrorist regime. America's attacking a terrorist regime, and we're not there. Beyond belief.
Just quickly, lovely to have you on. Sorry about the sound. You said that...
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Not your fault. That the grooming gang scandal, which I consider to be the biggest stain on this country, and I mean that, and I had the legend that is Maggie Oliver, who yesterday took the government to court to get a judicial review into a decision that means, well, we haven't seen a national inquiry, Robin. I think it's a disgrace. Again, I don't just put this at Labour's door, although they promised under Jess Phillips to do something. This goes back. I think it's, and I'm not exaggerating, I think it's institutionalised cover-up on an industrial scale. I think it's a disgrace. Oh... No, listen, we've got major problems. It's not Robin's fault at all. So Robin Wales, the longest-serving Labour mayor, a new Reform politician, has unfortunately problems with his technological. Listen, that happens, and people run around the office going, "Oh my God, oh my God!" It happens. It's live. We'll try and get him back. I promise you. Let's go to Hampshire. Laura, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. That was an interesting interview with the great Sir Robin Wales. I'm sorry it's disappeared, but I was going to give you a ticking off at 6:20 this morning, but then as the programme has gone on, you have agreed with me. Which
why were you giving me I quite like the idea of being ticked off. Why did you want to tick me off?
Well, because I feel like everybody has got their head in the sand and they're attacking this problem from the wrong point of view.
What problem?
Everyone is so surprised. Everyone is so surprised that the Labour government has reacted like this. Everyone is so surprised that Sir Keir Starmer is, swinging everything because of this, or not swinging anything because of the Muslim vote. I may be minority, but I am not surprised. I'm sorry to use the word evil, but I do believe there are evil forces in the background. And then we hear that Ed Miliband is basically running the show, and that's even spookier to think that the Prime Minister is not in control of what he does. And then we see a picture of the Palestinian ambassador sleazily rubbing his arm up and down in the most horrible way. And we see Keir Starmer looking absolutely terrified in his eyes of this other man. And to me, the whole thing is just obvious. The Labour government is not interested in us, the people, and I don't know how I do know how we get them out, but we can't. And it's just terrifying that people have their head in the sand. I mean, I talk to friends here, and they, apart from the fact they think I'm completely loopy, well, nothing's changed there, but they really genuinely do not see maybe the arrest of these Iranian and British-born Iranian citizens who were, wishing harm on us. Maybe they'll see it, but they all say, "Oh, we have to come to the table. Sir Keir Starmer's right. What? I mean, what is wrong with people?
I don't know why you accuse me of sticking my head in the sand, because I couldn't agree with you anymore. I was brought up believing that you shouldn't negotiate with terrorists. When my own I don't call him my Prime Minister, when the Prime Minister says... And do you know the thing is, Laura, and this is genuinely true, because I had about 20 minutes with one of them human rights lawyers the other day, off air, and you literally could tell them everything that's true and everything that's proven, and they will look you full square in the eyes as if you've landed from Mars and you're talking tripe. They won't buy it. If you say to a human rights lawyer, and I said it to him, whilst you hide behind the movable feast that is international law, would you dare to take that ideology and... I said it at 6:20. Would you take that ideology and stand in front of a parent whose child was killed at the Manchester Arena bombings? Do you know what they'd say? They'd say, sod international law, because the Ayatollah Khomeini didn't give a damn about international law. The paralysis is caused by ideology, but scarily, and I agree with you on this, this government are prioritising their own political, well, they're not going to survive, but survival in their minds right now, over national security. And that is the biggest thing that I think is wrong with this, that this man, worried by the Greens or worried by the Palestinian Action Group or worried by the Muslim vote or worried by the Parliamentary Labour Party, is making decisions, Laura, about this country and the safety of the country's people on political... That's dreadful. Dreadful.
Well, that's why I'd like to apologise on what I was thinking at 6:20, because as the programme went on, you did come over to my side. So I would like to apologise for my thoughts. But I agree with you. But I do think that the situation with the Green Party is actually very, very worrying, because it's the left, as sort of communist left, joining with the Muslim vote.
I have a really simple answer to this, and this is me being totally straight. Today in the Daily Mail, Polanski laughed at Churchill vandalism. You'd have heard the story last week, the statue of Winston Churchill. Again, whatever your politics, nobody would have freedom without that man. He thought it was all right to daub paint on that and laughed. I think the duty of any sane human being who is not left-orientated is to call out the Greens in a balanced and calm way so that sane Britons understand. This would be, people, tax at 70%. This would be complete demilitarisation and the belief that you can shake the hands of dictators with nuclear weapons. This is madness. This is let's legalise heroin. Just say that to a mother or father that lost their kid to that drug. It is madness and it needs to be called out. Laura Jane, thank you very much indeed. 7 minutes to 9. This is Talk Breakfast. Just to repeat that breaking news this hour, 4 men have been arrested on suspicion of aiding Iran's intelligence service by spying on locations and individuals linked to the Jewish community in London. The men who were arrested just after 1 a.m. this morning, we're hearing, 1 Iranian, 3 dual British and Iranian nationals, which of course begs many people to ask the question, what does that mean? The war is going on, we're stepping aside, we're trying to work out how to make a boat work. What about people who have come into this country illegally, close the borders, who could be sleeper cells? What does that mean for the British public? Am I going to the break with Stephen? Stephen, good morning.
Hi, Jeremy. It's Stephen from St Helens. Just regarding people coming into the country, I've been married for 3 years. My wife is an EU passport holder, speaks 7 languages, a very intelligent woman. We're actually going through a visa application at the moment, spouse visa, so she can come and live in the UK with me in my own house. I've got no mortgage, nothing. Everything is financed by myself. The rules and restrictions are ridiculous. It's costing me £7,500 for her to come and live here for 30 months. And then we've got to reapply after that. The rules are just completely wrong. People who do it legally are paying the cost for all these illegal immigrants coming in on the boats. Cheers, bye-bye.
no doubt that the British government has acted in an incredibly weak, equivocal way. It's easy to start a war, very difficult to ensure that the aftermath doesn't descend into complete chaos.
What's your view of that outburst of Trump?
Well, Trump doesn't mince his words, but I think his criticism is justified. I mean, we should have realised where our national interests stood, and he should have expressed immediate support.
We have pursued a ludicrous energy policy, preceding this government, frankly, and all the knock-on effects to that for our economy are catastrophic.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, almost 9 o'clock. Let's do a quick look at the sport, please, Sammy. Nearly
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From the Sun.
God, technology is great. Good morning to Catherine Walsh. I don't want to know about Manchester United. I want, as a West Ham fan, for the world to be honest. Spurs, those people who think it's not going to happen. You're heading to the Championship, and West Ham and Forest are going to survive, aren't we, Catherine?
I genuinely do believe so. I think a few weeks ago it was unthinkable to me that Spurs would even go down. I thought, no way, they'll get out of it somehow. But if you look at the fixtures, I really do think they are in real trouble. West Ham and Forest are in much, much better form. Spurs, I think, could be going down.
It's extraordinary. I watched the game last night. I don't think there was one player in the Spurs team that I would put in the Palace team. I think they have no fight and no guts. And that ideology that says, you know, it's not going to happen isn't going to see them through. Listen, what can you... This is fantastic. Do you know about the Alan Brazil game from TalkSport? This is absolutely fantastic. Cheltenham Festival next week, of course. And Denny, our boss, this is brilliant, by the way. The biggest question for next week isn't who's going to win the Gold Cup. I'll tell you that next week. It's whether Alan Brazil will actually make his breakfast show on TalkSport. Your fate is now... His fate's in your hands. It's a brilliant project, Cheltenham. It's a brand new mobile game. It's carnage. His wife Jill's involved. Lots of other TalkSport presenters. Go and download it. Talksport.com/game. Talksport.com/game. It's brilliant. It's got Ali McCoy. It's got everybody on it. Can Big Al from the TalkSport breakfast show, because he's a bit famous for not making either the first, second, third, or in fact any of the days. He's been found in various positions, some of them to do with alcohol, many to do with illness. The big question this year, Catherine, is will he make it? Thank you for your involvement in terms of Spurs. Manchester United losing as well. Just get that in. West Ham on the way to safety. It's almost 9 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Talk Breakfast is on. We continue to want your calls. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. And remember, after the news at 9, big guest, ex-Defence Secretary Ben Wallace now.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defence of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 9 o'clock. You with Talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Brit. It's Friday the 6th of March. And if you're just joining, you're waking up or you're joining to the news that, well, the front of the Mail sort of nails it today. It says that our deluded and desperate Prime Minister can't get anything right. It says we can't put a warship to sea. This is about HMS Dragon, or as I call it, HMS Dragging Your Feet, which is still stuck in Portsmouth. It should have been deployed and should have been ready to protect British citizens in Cyprus. But our Prime Minister, I don't know why, it wasn't ready. Embarrassingly, this is great. Even Luxembourg, that's a landlocked country, has managed to get a boat to Cyprus to support the situation, but we're stuck. Trump, love him or loathe him, started this week by saying he was disappointed in Starmer. This moved on to the special relationship isn't what it used to be. He's no Churchill. He's a loser. Today he says he should have helped his war effort without question. Is Britain the laughingstock of the world? Well, Keir Starmer holds on to the belief that you should sit at a negotiating table with brutal, tyrannical people, well, the mad mullahs of Tehran, who like to blow people up. This is our Prime Minister yesterday. While the world is on a knife edge, this is what Starmer thinks she should do.
Iran can end this now. They should refrain from further strikes, give up their weapons programs, and cease the appalling violence and repression against the Iranian people. This is the route to de-escalation and back to the negotiating table.
Ridiculous. Earlier I spoke to Sir Simon Mail, retired British Army General, who, in my mind, nailed it.
I hate to see our reputation being shredded by a government's failure to make a natural provision for the defence of our assets, our military, our personnel, our citizens in the region, standing alongside our allies. I think it's the most appalling. It's the most appalling dereliction of duty. So much more could have been done. We've burnt our relationship with the Americans. The Prime Minister has an incapacity to take genuinely strong decisions on behalf of the nation, like military preparedness, because he's so hemmed in by his own weakness and his cabinet.
Love your thoughts on this. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. And delighted my next guest will know the answers to these questions better than anybody. We say a very good morning to the former Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace. Ben, good morning.
Good morning.
You are entirely the right guest, and there are so many things I want to ask you. The Mail says we're a laughingstock. The Mail says we can't get a warship out of the docks in Portsmouth, and yet a landlocked country, Ben, in Luxembourg, is already out there. What do you make of Keir Starmer's response to this Iranian crisis?
Well, I'm afraid what it demonstrates, he's completely hemmed in by a sort of conflict between legal advice that he takes as the word of God rather than advice, and that's what it is, it's only advice, and his inability to sort of lead. To lead is to choose, as they always say. He chose the benefit cap. He chose, when he got into power, along with Rachel Reeves, to effectively freeze the defence budget. He chose to spend it on other things. If you remember, immediately gave goodies and handouts almost immediately. He chose to saddle the MOD with national insurance costs because anyone who knows anything about defence procurement would know that the big projects get to pass back some of those costs back into the department. He saddled it with unfunded pay rises. Doesn't mean to say you shouldn't have the pay rises, but the Treasury should have funded it. So the MOD has been desperately trying to find savings, and those savings come from availability, the readiness, the operational activity, which is why HMS Dragon is stuck where it is right now. That's over $2 billion a year the MOD is having to find from its activity, and it does that by sitting in port.
Couldn't agree more. Did he... Let me go further with you, Ben. Wouldn't it be fair to say, apart from ideology and apart from being hemmed in by, as you quite rightly say, what he sees as the word of God, he's also chosen, Ian Duncan Smith said this to me on Wednesday, political survival over national security. That, for me, is an absolutely justified criticism of Starmer right now.
Yeah, look, and I don't think that's right now. I think that is being what... You know, that was why the MOD got all this money effectively frozen. It is why he chose all those goodies that she handed out. Remember the £22 billion tax raid and tax increase on people, you know, through national insurance, through others, to give away in things like benefits, etc. They chose that. That's entirely on their watch. You can blame the Conservatives for lots of things, and I have been very, very consistent that both the Labour government and the Conservative government for the last 30 years hollowed out defence. You'll notice every time Keir Starmer references me at Prime Minister's question, he conveniently leaves out the Labour Party hollowed out. Both governments and the Lib Dems, because they're in coalition, hollowed out defence. It's all on our hands. We should take it like men, stand up and say, yes, that's what happened. Now try and fix it. But he chooses not to be honest about it, and that's a sure sign that he plays politics with our defence rather than actually putting his money where his mouth is.
Does his response as a former Defence Secretary embarrass you? Does it embarrass the country?
I think it embarrasses me that what he's done in Whitehall, my understanding, he's basically handed over the running of defence to the National Security Advisor and Lord Hermer, the Attorney General. You know, the current Secretary of State doesn't need permission to deploy a ship to the Mediterranean. I would do it all the time. You know, only a few weeks ago, HMS Anson, a attack submarine, a nuclear submarine, transited the Suez Canal and went on its way to Australia, where it has arrived a couple of weeks ago in Australia. That submarine carries Tomahawk cruise missiles, the very missiles the United States are using at the moment against ballistic missile launches and threats from Iran. It could have been held in the Mediterranean. It didn't have to go to Australia. It could have been told to come back. Why not? Those are all available capabilities. We have the land sector system. I commissioned an extra battery of air defence missiles for the army. It turns out that even though I had allocated the budget for it, it turns out when Labour got in, they paused it and pushed it to the right. So we are now short of air defence batteries. Again, I'm afraid to say that is on their watch. I'm very happy to take responsibility for the failures of my own party for the last 30 years on defence. I was a serving soldier, both under a Conservative and a Labour government. But I will also pin the blame where it matters right now in this area on the decisions this government has taken. It didn't need to be in this position right now. Even if it didn't go into war or support with the United States, we could have been better defended, and we have chosen not to be because we spent the money on welfare benefits.
Couldn't agree more. Earlier, we spoke to John Healey, who, in my mind, is definitely on the back foot. I'm going to play the interview. It's only about 30 seconds because he implies heavily that they've been aware of a build-up in that area, which again begs the question, Ian Duncan Smith touched upon this on Wednesday, like you just said about that submarine, why the hell wasn't HMS Dragon and or another boat out there in preparation? This is John Healey, Ben, earlier.
The Iranians always said that they would do it widespread. They would target US military assets around the region and anybody else. So did it come as a surprise to you that Akrotiri was targeted?
So weeks before the conflict started, I'd moved extra jets, air defence systems.
But none of them can defend against ballistic missiles.
And defending the island. We always will defend, we will fight in coordination with allies. And we had US destroyers also in the area. So,
But they can't defend against ballistic missiles. The Type 45 destroyer can. and it's not here yet. You know, the French have got a frigate here, I think, as of last night.
Sure.
I mean, the point, I know they're closer, but they got it to sea immediately.
Out of his depth, Ben, or hamstrung also by ideology?
I've known John. I always included him when I was the Secretary of State. I thought it was important that defence was a cross-party activity. I included even the Scottish Nationalists and the Lib Dems to make sure that we were all on a similar page and they understood the thinking behind it. And, you know, so I knew John Healey over the last few years. I think the simple issue here is John Healey is Labour first and defence second when it comes to it. You know, I had to have lots and lots of rows to get the extra £24 billion of defence spending that I achieved. For the very first time we got real increases in our defence budget was under my watch in 2019. I wasn't popular for it. I wasn't a particular team player. I would have rows with the Treasury. I'd have arguments with Boris Johnson. I would, you know, just make it very clear in public. I'd give an interview like that and I'd have said, well, we could have done it, but we didn't get the money from the Treasury. I wouldn't hide it. And I remember getting some criticism for that. You do have to do that in the end as a Secretary of State. You can't just go along with it all the time. If you think it's important, you make your case and you make a proper case. And we still see no real money for defence. It's just, I mean, if not now, when? I mean, we are at a very dangerous point in this world. I cannot tell you how the threat has grown and grown and grown. And the point that the interviewer said to John Healey about Iran's plans, I knew what Iran's plans were. It hasn't changed. You know, containment in the region, trying to spread it all out, trying to use proxies. In Cyprus, I remember being, you know, on operations in Cyprus. I remember working in Cyprus as a soldier. Even then it was often targeted. It was only a few minutes from Syria and Hezbollah. Everyone knows it. And I don't know what the excuse is that somehow we didn't. We could have had a range of capabilities there. You know, I'm not even in the inner circle of secrets anymore, but I knew that Donald Trump had authorised the target sets the week before it started.
Let me ask you a question, if I can jump in. Has John Healey and the government, don't want to make it personal, but is John Healey's the Defence Secretary, and as you said, if you're in the chair, you take the criticism. Has he put British troops at risk in Cyprus and have this government by failing to act quicker?
This government has put the wrong priorities basically before defence of this nation. That's how I would put it. They chose, all on their watch, on day one and Rachel Reeves' first budget, they chose to splash the cash at the height even then of a very dangerous Putin in the East. Even then, they chose to pause. If you remember, the defence investment programme was paused deliberately because apparently they knew best. We had to have another STSR, even though we'd had two in the last sort of 8 years. It was always going to be they knew best. They paused it. We're still waiting for the defence investment plan. That's the investment in new equipment. We could have just carried, they could have been decent enough.
I mean, I get that, and I'm not, listen, I respect you. I'm as patriotic as they come. It infuriates me. I found this week the most infuriating and embarrassing week of broadcasting, watching this debacle in front of me. But you have to answer, I guess, all of us do. British troops have been exposed, Ben, haven't they? They are at risk because our government has not acted in the national interest as quickly as they should have done.
The troops that we had, or the Navy personnel that we have in Bahrain, we have an actual base in Bahrain. Sitting in Bahrain, we're nearly hit by that Iranian missile that you see being played out time and time again. They were sitting there pretty naked from all those threats. And we had known for a long time that Bahrain and our friends in the Gulf were always going to be in the front line. And it is outrageous that there was not enough done to protect those people. At the very least, he could have evacuated them. But instead, they sat by on their hands. And even when all the indicators were there, it was just either left to the Americans, which, to be fair to Donald Trump, is the one area where I agree with him on. We've taken them for granted for so long. They were just sitting there, and that missile came in.
So they were at risk?
They were definitely at risk in Bahrain. Absolutely at risk. I don't think they were such a great risk in the immediate in Cyprus, but, you know, they were definitely at risk in Bahrain. And the other key thing here was the Iranians didn't feel deterred, right? They didn't. Yeah. Whoever it was who fired this drone at RAF Akatiri in Cyprus didn't feel deterred. You know, if you had HMS Anson with a Tomahawk cruise missile somewhere in the region, and that missile would go right down the throat of the person that fired the ballistic missile, you might think twice. But no, we didn't have that. And we used to have a Bay class in Bahrain, which was like a logistics ship and minesweepers. If you remember, Labour decommissioned HMS Bulwark and Albion, our amphibious assault ships.
Yeah.
When I was in, the Navy asked me to do it. I refused to do it. I said it was very important. We'd only had one of them refitted that pretty recently. Labour decommissioned them. I think we flogged them to the Chileans or the Brazilians or something like that. So, of course, the Bay class ship that's in Bahrain is one of the ships that has to come back to augment them. So now there's no Bay class ship to demine the Gulf. So look, those decisions are the decisions of the government of the day. It's about priorities. They've chosen different priorities. Your viewers and listeners will no doubt decide whether this government's priorities are in the right place at the most dangerous time, probably in my lifetime.
Talking about danger, if I can just before you go get your response, Ben, former Defence Secretary, 4 men we had confirmed an hour ago in a breaking news story have been arrested on suspicion of aiding Iran's intelligence services by spying on locations and individuals linked to Jewish communities in London. The men arrested, actually, I don't know if you've seen this, 1 Iranian and 3 dual British and Iranian nationals shortly after 1 a.m. Many people contacting this show, and I think many people genuinely wondering about the fallout from what's happening in Iran in terms of sleeper cells, in terms of, you know, almost open borders seems to be a policy nowadays in this country, that there are people in this country. The question to you is, if you were involved right now, do you think we should be raising the terror threat level in the UK, or is that something that needs looking at?
I think I will leave that to professionals. I mean, you could argue that one of the reasons we're at the mess we're in is that, you know, the government hasn't listened to the professional military people who have been saying time and time again, we've got to invest in our defence and do things differently. I'll leave it to MI5 about the threat level. But what I can say, and it's a matter of public record, Hezbollah have been active in this country for many years. I remember when I was security minister, it was exposed that Hezbollah had been wrecking sites to store explosives in the United Kingdom. Hezbollah have a plan. They have the Quds Force, and overseas, the Iranians have the Quds Force that supports Hezbollah and other terrorist groups. And of course, we saw already a number of squads or assassination teams come to the UK to try and target Iranian minister. I myself, I don't know if you remember, there was an ex-soldier convicted for the breach of the Official Secrets Act when he was trying to sell secrets. I was involved, you know, I was part of that. I think he was trying to give them information about me. And I think, you know, of course, there's been a long and enduring and growing threat from Iran to this country, and that's why I take issue with effectively Hermer's view that there wasn't a legal basis for any action. It was a policy decision by this Prime Minister not to take any action or join the United States. It wasn't a legal decision in my view, but I think he's hiding behind that legal advice, which I said at the beginning. He just seems like a rabbit in the headlights. He cannot lead through his instinct and his stomach, let's say. He seems to just be like a technocrat commissioning paper all the time.
Ben, 2 very quick questions, we'll let you go. And please, will you come back? It's been absolutely fascinating having you on today. Was there an opportunity, or did you ever contemplate striking Iran when you were in power?
No, I don't think that. I mean, look, when we were in power, what was definitely happening was the direction of travel of the Iranian regime was getting worse and worse and worse. The United Kingdom could never have done it on our own. It would have had to have been a coalition. There was always discussions about the direction of travel of the nuclear program. It had been made very clear for 15, 20 years that the Israelis wouldn't tolerate enriched uranium to a certain level. I remember just as I left, UN inspectors discovered enriched uranium at 83%.
Yeah.
For your viewers and listeners, X-ray machines are around, I think, 2%, 3%. Civil power, you know, the most the civilian sector needs is 20% enriched uranium. When you get to enriched uranium at 83%, it takes you 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, to enrich to weapons grade. So there were always discussion. There was always going to have to be a multinational thing if any action was ever taken. I think we do have to, you know, we have to be careful about one thing. The regime change line that we currently see from the United States, I just feel it hasn't been thought through at the moment. You know, you have to have a plan. If you are going to do a regime change, you really have to have an opposition and training and planning. And
I get that. I get that, but just, and I know it's really difficult and we haven't got a lot of time. If you'd been the Defence Secretary on Friday morning or whenever it was, would you have launched British forces alongside the Americans and the Israelis, Ben?
I would have certainly enabled the use of our bases. I think it would have been legal to do so. I would have also sought from the National Security Council and the Prime Minister permission that in self-defence you are allowed to contribute to the destruction of any capability that would have reached into our Gulf allies and indeed our own bases and our people. You know, I think that's important, to give the professional people the rules of engagement to do so. And it's very easy to do that. You can set the rules of engagement out. The reality was we don't actually have the equipment we need at the right place at the right time.
And on that, if you were the Defence Secretary, final question, I promise, would you be arguing absolutely, fundamentally for an increase in defence spending to the Prime Minister?
Yes, I mean, I would have done it. I mean, I always did it. It didn't make me popular. But, you know, remember when this government very quickly loaded up extra pressures. One was the pay rise that was unfunded. It doesn't mean to, you know, the Treasury didn't give you the money for it. The other one was when she put up the national insurance, Rachel Reeves, all the big contracts like the Type 26, the Trident submarines, they get to pass that national insurance cost back to the Treasury and back to the department. And we've got the Chagos Islands cell, which is going to cost the MOD. You could argue it's a Foreign Office's problem, not ours. That was Florida. I would have been, I'm afraid I'd either been still the Defence Secretary and got the money, or I probably wouldn't have been. But, you know, I was supported by my Prime Ministers. You know, they all started to head towards 3%. I remember getting Boris Johnson to 2.8% at the NATO conference. The Treasury didn't like me for that. But we have to keep fighting, and every day the Defence Secretary needs to go into bat against the Treasury.
What does it need to be, by the way, quickly? 3% minimum?
3% by 2030. To be realistic, you can't just give the department billions of pounds. They won't spend it properly, or they won't spend it straight away. You need a proper rising gradient to get there. 3% by 2030 is realistic. It could spend it. It allows it to modernise, and it allows it to deliver the right things. And, you know, my party has announced today extra money by bringing back the two-child benefit cap. I think that's the right priority in a time like this. And I think, you know, for your viewers of my age and older, they all remember that during the Cold War, we were spending 4% of GDP. And that was the time, that was the level when we replaced the last deterrent, right? We're trying to do it on 2%. That's one of the problems. We still had a health service. We still had Department of Transport. We still had roads. The country didn't fall apart. We had 4% of GDP, and we had the Soviet Union. And, you know, it shouldn't be a sort of, you know, one or the other. It can be both. It's just maybe we better be better at spending people's money.
Final, but actually, but not the final. This is yes or no. Do you miss it?
No, I did. I did 7.5 years of Security Minister and Defence Secretary. And, you know, I remember being in Liz Truss's cabinet, and I was the only one who'd ever been in opposition. I was elected when Tony Blair was the Prime Minister. I think there is a moment where you just move on and let it move on. But
well, listen, talking to you, sadly, Miss, just to sum up, you haven't been proud of this government's response to what's happened this week, Ben Wallace.
I'm not proud on this government's defence record. I think they have let us all down.
A real pleasure. Will you come back sometime?
Yeah, happy to.
Great to have you on. Thank you so much indeed. Ben Wallace, former Defence Secretary on Talk Breakfast. 9:25, back in 3.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Many people totally impressed with Ben Wallace. Joanna from Salisbury, more Ben Wallace, please. You know so much about the history of our military. Dave, Ben Wallace, please join Reform. Such an asset. Ben Wallace will be a regular on this breakfast show. Jess, this is Dan Thompson. Lovely to see you on a Friday. Ben Wallace is very impressive. Finally, someone who is not gaslighting the British public. I'd feel a lot safer right now if he was still in charge of our defences. No, it isn't. 0344 0800. Slightly weird. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. I've just been passed by the team here a story on the front of the Daily Telegraph, ladies and gentlemen, which is entitled "My Nanny Flirts with My Husband, but I Can't Sack Her." News blackout time, I think. I will be gaslighting the public. We're not talking about that sort of thing. Morning, Wayne.
Good morning, Jezza. I think I've lost my mind. I think I've gone. I'm done, mate, completely. Listen to this advert I've just heard. Starmer, hold my hand. Book now with 2 jet immigration days. Get £10,000 repatriation costs. That's £40,000 for a family of 4, with hundreds of thousands of dinghy spaces available. Book now and get 18 months 5-star accommodation absolutely free. All holidays are ECHR protected. Mate, I'm done. I've lost it. I've absolutely broken.
Join the club. Grant in Bridgend says, Jez, I watch the show every morning. This week, however, he said, I love it, has been the most infuriating, desperately embarrassing week of being British. The fact we're relying on the rest of Europe to protect Akrotiri is quite frankly beyond shameful. I love this country, but at this point, I'd take the 40 grand and move my family bloody anywhere else in the world. Our next guest has been an extraordinary, strong support of this show, and this station has been providing updates from Dubai, where she now lives, Isabel Oakeshott. We didn't think we'd get her today because she spent part of this morning in an underground bunker as more missiles are being shot into Dubai. I mean, you are action woman, Isabel, aren't you, to be fair?
Well, look, I'm not pretending to be Kate Asey at this point. You know, this is Dubai. Everything's still functioning. It is quieter than usual. We were a bit surprised to get that alert this morning, but I'm happy to say we weren't down in the makeshift bunker for very long. Amusingly, the delivery drivers that get stuff to apartments here in no time whatsoever kept zipping through the underground bunker as if still carrying on.
Amazon's here. Don't worry about the missiles. I'm delivering whatever you want. I don't know if you don't want to say this, but I loved what you said earlier about the kids. Do you not want to say that? Because this is brilliant.
Well, I mean, they're just a bit blasé about it at this point. I mean, one of my daughters ordered Weetabix this morning. You know how the Straits of Hormuz are kind of closed at this point.
Kind of closed, yeah.
So, yeah, there's like a sort of massive stoppage in the flow of worldly goods. But it appears that you can still get a box of Weetabix in Dubai delivered to your apartment within 12 minutes of placing the order. How's that for a high-functioning city?
I love the fact that you said that 2 weeks ago or a week ago, naturally they were very scared. Now they're like, have we got to go in the bunker? I want to go out today.
Massive eye rolling, and kind of, nothing's going to happen, is it? You know.
Brilliant.
I guess that's human nature, isn't it? You get a bit more blasé, you start laughing because you've got to laugh, haven't you? I mean, I heard your caller earlier saying I'm losing the plot. I mean, last night I just thought this is all so surreal. Can we just have a bit of a laugh about it? And yeah, we just got to. I'll
tell you who's not laughing. Well, the international communities. There's a great bit on the front of the Mail this morning. I'd love your response to this. We can't put a warship to sea, Isabel. Luxembourg can, and they're bloody landlocked. HMS dragging your feet, still in Portsmouth. Trump's not speaking to the Prime Minister. Britain is being laughed at, and yet the desperately deluded Starmer. Have you seen the clip? We need to get round the negotiating table.
Oh, come on. I mean, this is just completely delusional, isn't it? I see it's also on the front page of the Telegraph. Starmer, US must negotiate with Iran. I mean, okay, so he thinks that this entire kind of brink of World War III happened because US didn't think about negotiating with Iran, because there hadn't been years of negotiations with Iran that have failed to stop its murderous quest for nuclear weapons. What bit of negotiating with mad people doesn't work has Starmer not grasped? These people aren't lawyers. They're not, the mad mullahs, the ayatollahs are not sitting round tables examining what's possible under international law and coming to some kind of compromise with the world. They are busy lobbing missiles at their nearest neighbours, people with whom they, until recently, were doing healthy business.
I couldn't agree more, and yet there is this sort of continued belief amongst him and probably just Hermer and other human rights idiots that you must go down that way. We just had Ben Wallace on, who was a particularly good defence secretary, who argued the toss repeatedly with ex-prime ministers that there should be more money spent on defence. And I said to him, Isabel, and I think you'd agree with this, I think it's one of the biggest crimes ever politically, and I'm not talking about Starmer on his own. I'm talking about successive Tory governments and the coalition, that they have cut defence spending. I mean, we are faced with the realisation, Britannia ruled the waves and all that. That's we're impotent. We're literally impotent. I know people laugh at me. Luxembourg is bloody landlocked, Isabel, and they've sent a boat and we can't manage it.
I mean, the best we seem to be able to manage is Angela Rayner on a canoe. That is about it, isn't it? Look, I've been covering defence for many years now, and defence chiefs have been warning, really in very, very serious terms they've been warning since 2010, when David Cameron came in and immediately conducted a swinging strategic defence review that decimated our armed forces. The warnings began then, but they really escalated in the last, let's say, 6 or 7 years.
Yep.
Defence chiefs have said time and again, you know what, you might not be keen on any more wars. We know you're not. We know that the British people don't want more wars of choice. They are fed up of engagement in foreign theatres of war far and away, and seeing our British brave personnel coming back in body bags, as we did with Afghanistan. But we don't get to choose now. The world is a much smaller place than it was in World War II, when countries could just choose to be neutral. Everything is far more interconnected now. And we've seen that playing out in real time just in the last few days, as more and more countries are being drawn in, willingly, unwillingly, bravely and voluntarily, like the countries are coming to the rescue because they do actually still have some naval assets, while we sit around with Keir Starmer going, yeah, we've got this all under control. I've had this in the preparation for months now. That's why HMS Minnow is still sitting in the port in Portsmouth going absolutely nowhere. I mean, it's humiliating on an epic scale, a humiliation the like of which perhaps we have not had since Suez.
It's bloody shambolic. I'd like your response as well. I don't know if you picked up on this because you've been in your bunker, but 4 men overnight, 1 a.m. in the morning, have been arrested on suspicion of aiding Iran's intelligence services by spying on locations and individuals linked to the Jewish community, bless them, in London. The men arrested were an Iranian national and 3 dual British-Iranian nationals shortly after 1 a.m. The big concern, Isabel, for many people here, you've got your concerns with missiles there, but the concern here is sleeper cells will probably be in the United Kingdom because, of course, anybody can get in, and don't get me on the 40 grand we'll give you to go home. The fact of the matter is there is an increased terror level. Do you believe that there's an attack or is imminent? Do you believe that there is concern to be had over here from what you know?
I do, actually, and it's really a simple judgment based on the number of Iranian nationals that we have brought into the UK, that we have that are either in the UK with asylum seeker status or have become refugees or even have settled status. It is thousands and thousands and thousands. And as I've said before, most of them will be dissidents. Most of them hate the Iranian regime. We've seen that. I had a researcher at the protest, the so-called vigil, the candlelit vigil for the Ayatollah that was held in Manchester on Wednesday night. And that vigil was completely, I'm glad to say, drowned out by hundreds of jubilant anti-regime protesters. That in itself spoke to just how many Iranians there are here. But there was a small group of people at the candlelit vigil. Very significantly, none of them wanted to talk to any of the reporters there. You know, they appeared to have plenty to hide. Meanwhile, the anti-regime campaigners, the ones who were celebrating what Trump has done, were vocally warning that those in the UK who are mourning the death of the Ayatollah are potential terrorists. That is a stark warning coming from our own Iranian community in the UK.
So just to confirm, you think an attack on UK soil could be imminent?
I have no special knowledge of that. I wouldn't want to spread alarm and misinformation, but nobody sensible, knowing how many Iranians have come to our country, particularly by small boats, by the way, they've broken into our country, are now lying low in the UK. What might they be planning? If ever there was a time for them to do something, it would be now.
Final question, and I don't want you to fall off your chair. I'm sure you know this story. We finally found out yesterday from Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary of this government, that she has a plan to deport illegal migrants, not to stop them coming. Have you seen this in your bunker? Failed asylum families to be paid £40,000 tax-free to leave the UK within 7 days. So having broken in here, Isabel, having enjoyed all the trappings of, you know, a 4-star hotel and money and a mobile phone, and you can see a dentist and see a doctor, we are going to shamelessly, under this government, offer them 40 grand in tax-free cash to leave, despite the fact that the hard-working Brits that listen to this are on their backsides. Give me a line for that. It's outrageous.
It is totally grotesque and a scandalous abuse of public funds. That is, I mean, surely that pushes everything to breaking point. How can that even be contemplated as an option? Instead, we should be sending them packing and hitting them with a bill for everything they've cost us in the time that they have been leeches off the British state.
Great to have you on. Thank you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I hope the weekend goes well. We'll speak to you next week. Isabel Oakeshott talks international editor, 20 to 10. Still to come on this show. Delighted to welcome ahead of 10 o'clock General Sir Nick Parker, former Commander-in-Chief of UK Land Forces. Next on Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 80 minutes to 10. Alex Phillips for Julia Hartley-Brewer from 10. Ian Collins. The Housewives' Choice from 1 o'clock. Ably produced by a bloke called Finn. More about him one day. I haven't got time today, but that's an interesting story. And Kevin O'Sullivan this afternoon from 4 o'clock with Drive Time. Elle, good morning.
with regards to this £40,000, so they come across and say that they claim an asylum because they're persecuted or unsafe, but then we give them £40,000 to go back to where they came from, where they're persecuted and unsafe.
Yeah, and then they deposit the money in a bank and then they can come back again because patently where they came from wasn't unsafe and patently were as soft as whatever. Listen, it's been, I have to say this to the team, everybody associated with the team, an extraordinary week. The guests they've booked have been phenomenal. We'll finish a 5-day marathon on this with Sir Nick Parker, General Sir Nick Parker, formerly the Commander-in-Chief of the UK Land Forces. Sir Nick, a very good morning to you.
Morning, Jeremy.
Sir Simon Mail was on the show earlier decrying in some strong words how he saw this government's response and the way that this country has let slip the values that he's always believed in. As a former Commander-in-Chief of UK Land Forces, what do you make of the last few days?
In some ways, I'm not surprised. I mean, the first thing I would like to say, which I don't think has come across as much as it might have done over the last hour that I've been listening, the American military capability is extraordinary. And when you combine that with the Israelis, we've got to at least acknowledge that what they've done is way beyond our capability and sends to me two messages. The first is, to be safe in this world, we have to have alliances. We do not have the capability, anything like the capability to operate on our own. And therefore, coalitions and alliances and relationships are absolutely fundamental to us. And the second thing is, and this is more difficult, but the military effect that the Americans have had in Iran is going to leave consequences which are not part of the military operation.
Yeah.
So they are going to bomb them to submission, and then they're going to start rearranging rubble. And there are going to be consequences, both internal security and how that can be exported. And we've already seen that, and you've mentioned it already, the implications for people operating in the homeland. Disaffected Iranians that start to try and counter people from an asymmetric way, first. And second, of course, the economic impact. Blocking the Straits of Hormuz, unexpected, I think, implications of natural gas, and what's going to happen in the Red Sea and the Houthis. So there are lots of unintended consequences that come from this, but my goodness, what an impressive military operation.
Few quick questions. The relationships that you quite, well, the alliances that you quite rightly allude to, much has been made this week of Starmer, the man who thinks that we can sit round a negotiating table with brutal, tyrannical murderers. Many people say he's affected the special relationship with America and relationships with our partners in the Gulf. Do you believe they've been damaged? Will they recover, or has there been irreparable harm done to them?
Two things. First, with America, the relationship has changed with this administration, and probably a little bit before. I mean, look at the way Biden left Afghanistan. Look at the lack of vociferous leadership that we got from the Biden administration when Ukraine kicked off. I mean, there were lots of cash went into Ukraine, but there wasn't that sort of sense of leadership from America. They are pulling back. They're taking a position that people have likened to the sort of early Monroe Doctrine, but they're becoming more isolationist, more fixed on their hemisphere and China. So we have got to grow up that the Americans can no longer underpin the North Atlantic Treaty in the way that we got used to. And we have got to show resilience at home and a credible force. And my worry about what's been going on over the last 4 or 5 days is that we're transmitting messages to those people who should be part of our new alliances that we are not particularly resilient at home, and our ability to export force isn't particularly credible.
Has our reputation been shredded by this?
I mean, you use...
Maybe the wrong word, shredded.
I understand that. I mean, I think it's very disappointing. I mean, you don't need to be a brain surgeon to work out in January and February that something's going to kick off in Iran. And certainly my experience would be that the military planners in the alliance and the UK will have been working out what sort of contingencies we should have in place. And I mean, to be blunt, that's not deploying something after something's happened.
Even if you couldn't agree more, even if you manage it. Do you believe, and people will have different opinions on this, Sir Nick, and I get it, but do you believe that we should have been on the offensive initially with the US or Israel? Or do you believe that the real problem was that he then denied the bases? Where are you on that?
I don't think two things. I don't think we should have been on the offensive with them, partly because we would have only have been a token. Our force would have been there to build the credibility of an international coalition.
Yeah.
And Israel and America don't need that. So we don't need to waste any of our credit on something where we would not have been able to make a significant contribution and where the implications in the long term are significant. And I go back to what I said before about exporting terror when this is all over. As far as our bases are concerned, I mean, to me as a soldier, it's a complete no-brainer. I cannot understand why we're having this debate. You have a base for your allies, and to allow them to land and operate from your base seems to me to be absolutely clear.
Couldn't agree more.
You interpret the law. You don't make the law force you what to do.
Well, that's my part. I've said all week, Sir Nick, that under this administration, in my humble opinion, the international law becomes a movable feast that they use as and when to justify whatever they're doing. You talked about how our force, which is a really interesting angle, wouldn't have made much difference, would have been a token. Ben Wallace was on the show after 9 o'clock bemoaning, and actually was probably a lone voice. And this goes back, this isn't Starmer, this goes back for many governments. I see it as one of the biggest national disgraces, the way that I use the word again, the defence spending has been shredded. I mean, somebody gave me a figure the other day, and it is being proven, right, to be true. We've had more people come into this country illegally in the last 18 months than we now boast in all three of our major military services. That is deplorable, Sir Nick, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the thing, I get everything you said, and I don't disagree with any of it. The thing that really bothers me is the country, the society, has lost an understanding of what it means to be resilient. And that is because of political leadership over many years. So, bear with me, but electricity bills are being kept low at the expense of investing in the national grid. So you don't have a resilient electricity infrastructure, so that when the time comes when somebody starts to bully us, and there is going to be more global bullying because of the rules-based system breaking down and all of that, we don't have a sufficiently strong, resilient infrastructure at home. And the society that we need to provide the politicians with their democratic base, that society is not educated on where these risks lie. So you'll have seen these polls that are being conducted, which show that people generally think it's a jolly bad thing and we need to spend more on welfare than we do on defence. We have to educate people that if they want welfare, they can only do it within a secure defence envelope. You know, the government's first duty is the defence of its people, and we're getting indications that is no longer a sufficiently high priority, and as you say, it hasn't been a sufficiently high priority for many years. Times have changed, and we've got to invest in it.
Which is a dereliction, I would have thought, of any government and any prime minister. The protection of one's people and the protection of one's country is absolutely paramount. And I don't need to get it political with you, but we have the biggest welfare bill in the world. It shows no sign of shrinking, and our security, our defence, all of those things have been put at the back of the queue. And that, wanting to find a far classier way of describing it to you, sir, has come back and bitten us on the arse, hasn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, I have to say, somebody listening to this programme will quite rightly say, well, what about you, armchair generals? When you were in, why weren't you doing more? And I think there is something to be said for the fact that although we have all argued for more resources, I accepted, to my eternal shame, a political cap of 10,000 troops in Afghanistan when we needed more. But it was a political strength that was given to me, and so we operated within that envelope. We had a culture of making do with what we've got and being very proud of how well we did with the resource limitations we were given. That is complete history now. We have to move on from that. We have to understand that the threat is what dictates how much we spend, not political wishes and priorities. And so it's bringing that up to a higher level that's so important for me, making it a national issue to be more resilient and to spend more on defence.
An absolute, seriously, along with Simon, just brilliant to have you on. Will you come back, Sir Nick?
Oh, whenever you want, Jeremy, provided you don't produce too much hyperbole, which makes me feel uncomfortable.
There's no hyperbole for me. It was one of the best conversations I've had. I very much appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much indeed. Sir Nick Parker, former Commander-in-Chief of the UK Land Force, he's talking very honestly there about, what did he say, our force would have been a token. A token. I think all the people relating to the military have agreed that we have sold our country down the river over many years by not having what we needed. Let's go to Gloucestershire. David, literally 1 minute on Talk Breakfast. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. Well, I just said I actually believe the country has already been taken over with the way the government our government have behaved, the way our police behave, the way everybody seems to behave. I think we've already been taken over. And I did have this awful thought this morning. Do you know what? The Russians, or a hostile state, could now surround this country with nuclear submarines, throw nuclear missiles into every city in the UK with absolute impunity, and we wouldn't be able to defend ourselves or to go back, to get back at them. And they know it now.
I think the world knows. I think the world knows. And when a retired general who's run UK land forces said, "We've done our best with what I've got, but we've..." I thought the most telling comment this morning was, even if we had joined the Americans and the Israelis, our force would have just been a token and it would have made no difference at all. Thank you, David. Let's shoot to Basingstoke. Simon, you're on Talk Breakfast. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning. I think it's worse than people realise. I mean, there isn't a single force that we have, Navy, Air Force or Army, that's ready for war. And you think about it, how many drones have been fired at our Cyprus air base? Compare that to how many drones, ballistic missiles are used each and every day in Ukraine, where our government wants to send our ill-prepared army as some sort of peace-enforcing force. We need to realise defence is like insurance. If you have a powerful enough defence and you can basically bloody the nose of any potential enemy, you don't have to fight.
Couldn't agree more. Listen, got to move on, Simon. Thank you very much indeed. 5 to 10. Morning, Gaz.
Morning, Jez. Great show, mate. Gaz from Pontefract. Going back to yesterday when you had that Labour MP on, and you challenged him on waspy women, and he said, well, it wasn't in the manifesto. Sorry, I can't help but do a Keir Starmer voice there every time. He said it wasn't in the manifesto. Yeah, well, neither was Chagos, neither was scrap and jury trials, neither was the farm tax, neither was removing the winter fuel allowance, neither was bringing us close to the EU. Neither was anything else that they're pulling stunts with, you know what I mean? But that aside, I'm a veteran. I did 10 years in the Air Force, 1990 to 2000. And yeah, the country wasn't perfect with Major and Blair, but the decline wasn't there. The protest, the gangs, the division, the everything, the hatred, just the decline, yeah, everything. Things worked, you know, and the Air Force was fantastic, and I loved it, and I loved all 10 years of it. And I think it was 80,000 strong when I joined in 1991, tail end of 1990. But what is it now? Somewhere between 20 and 30,000 strong. Unreal. Anyway, breaks my heart, mate, but have a good day.
Thank you to Gaz, thank you to everybody, and thank you to the team. You've been brilliant, to Christian and Damien and Tommy and Nahar and Big Sammy and Big M. They're not big, I just say that. Brilliant. Thank you so much indeed. Breakfast back on Monday morning at 6 o'clock at your place. Alex Phillips standing in for Julia Hartley-Brewer from 10. The voice of the housewife, well, the frustrated housewife, my wife's anything to go by. Ian Collins from 1. Kevin O'Sullivan from 4 o'clock. Keep calls coming to Alex 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. And that's the week done. We're going home because we live there. See you Monday.